Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here. Sounds like an echo chamber. Right here, wherever you are, wherever we are, on another day this show comes out. I'm your host, the great Brian Last, and of course, the man who'll be answering your questions and reviewing the 2022 Royal Rumble, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Brian Last, some people have accused us of living in an echo chamber. And now you've gone and moved into one for real. You know, the baronial estate there, the Last Manor, you are the Baron of Last Manor, and it's so expansive, it's so vast that it needs to be filled in with all of your various personal belongings that act as sound bafflers. And since you've just moved into the palatial estate that it is, you've still got a little bit of a hello, 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 hello in there when you raise that authoritative voice of yours, and it's bouncing off the walls. So you've moved into an echo chamber.
Yep. But a lot of people have said we've been in one for a while, so I'm kind of used to it. But you know what the coolest thing is? I'm so excited about this. This is one of the reasons I'm in such a good mood. This house has a 100% fully working new tone intercom system with a cassette deck. So I can play my cassettes and it comes out of every speaker all over the house. And then I can control who gets what. I can control the bass and the treble and everything else. And it's amazing.
You the control voice from the outer limits? We control all that you see and hear. We control the horizontal and the vertical.
And now I make my requests on the intercom. Suzanne says I sound like the principal. You know, could take out the garbage. Thank you.
Yeah. Eric Cartman to the principal's office, please. Eric, now what is the circa era of the new tone? Because I remember that it's like they're from the 90s, right? When cassettes were still a thing.
Yeah, because it has a CD player also.
Oh, so it's the double unit when they were phasing one out and bringing the other one in, but they weren't sure which was going to last. Even better. So you can play everything up there.
It's even better than that. The cassette player is separate from the player with the CD unit. So for any potential repairs, because I've looked into all of this, Newtone's out of business. So they no longer repair their own stuff. You have to get specialists. And I'm kind of in a really, really sweet position with this.
They've taken care of the intercom system, the folks that lived there before. That's good to know. I bet they were fine folks, probably very church-going people, gave to charity, used their left and right turn indicators in their cars.
I think they like yelling at each other over the intercom system is what I think. And you know what? It is fun. This thing is fun to use, especially when you just start blasting music. I got The Kids Better Get Out of Bed Right Now music ready to go. I got a couple cassettes of that. It's a lot of fun.
Well, but what we started talking about, though, with your echo, that's going to be filled in once you get all of your various belongings unpacked. Right now, it looks like, what was, oh, God damn it, the takeoff of San Simeon. What was Charles Foster Kane's mansion called?
Xanadu.
Robert Xanadu, thank you. I was thinking more of the Olivia Newton-John single, but nevertheless. Right now, it looks like Xanadu with no furnishings. But once you get everything filled in, once that the trucks start arriving, that convoy of trucks headed across the state, up that giant hill, across the moat, everything gets in there, it'll sound just lovely. Meanwhile, I've got a different problem. I'm in a good mood today, too, also, because I hit the gold mine. I hit the mother lode this morning. I don't like to go out in public much these days. We're not shipping right now. More on that later with the Cornette's Collectible Store at JimCornette.com. I still won't have to be going to the post office, but you people are going to be getting your shit. But since I'm not going to the post office and the weather is colder than a witch's tit, colder than a well digger's ass, colder than whatever meteorological simile you'd like to proffer today, point is, I don't like to go out in the public with the pandemic and the cold and the ice and the sleet and the snow and things like that. But there's been the Sprite Zero shortage, and I'm about getting sick and fed up with all of you people out there in Twitter land that follow me. I know you listen to the program, and I appreciate that, but you don't have to rub my nose in it. I've got people tweeting me pictures from their local stores, one from Australia, several from up in the Midwest, stacks and stacks of Sprite Zero in cans in the 12-packs. And they're just rubbing my nose in it, because down here, for whatever reason, there has been a shortage, and it creates a shortage of all Sprite Zero because people that can't buy the preferable method in the 12-packs, in the cans, then they go to the 2 liters. And the last thing to go is the little 6-ounce cans, because for whatever reason, they're twice as expensive as the 2 liters with half as much in them. Who knows how this works? But anyway, this morning, I ventured back out. And I was determined, because the last time I went out last week, I could only scrounge up a couple of 2 liters and a few meager. I was on the Fresca. Brian, it came to that. I was on the Fresca trying to stretch out my Sprite Zero and make it last. I was on watering my shit down, right? I was cutting the shit.
Can I just say real quick, one of the funniest things ever, this is legit. You called me the other day in the morning and I said, hey, what's going on? You said, Brian, I'm on the Fresca.
Yeah. With the disgust and the disdain in my voice. It's come to this. I'm on the Fresca. I got a 2 liter on my back. But anyway, so this morning I go out early. Venture out, nobody in the parking lot, parked real close, zipped in there. The Coca-Cola guy, the Coke gentleman, my Coke dealer was there. And guess what I got? He brought them in, and these don't last long. You know, those plastic 12-ounce bottles. They're not as big as the ones they sell individually in the convenience store. They're a little shorter, fatter jobs, but they come in 8-packs. And as soon as he had put them on the shelf, I took them right off the shelf. I got 10 8-packs of I believe they're 12-ounce bottles. And then I got 4 6-packs of the 6-ounce cans, because I have those here with me on the podium when we're doing the program. And that'll last me 2 weeks. I figure about 14 days. So I got that going for me now.
So that's 80 plus will last you 2 weeks.
Yeah, roundabout. Except if I eat a lot of spicy food and get thirsty. And then, it increases the intake, and you never know what might happen.
How often do you ever just have a glass of water?
What?
Just a glass of water. Like, I'm thirsty. Let me have a glass of water.
If I'm thirsty, I'm going to have a Sprite Zero. What do I want to fuck around with water for? There's no carbonation. There's no lemon lime goodness. There's no refreshing nectar of the gods taste. It's there. It's like drinking cold, clean saliva. It's just liquid.
I've never heard anyone describe it like that, but sometimes you want something that isn't the taste of, let's say, a Sprite or something, I would think.
Why, what is this you speak of? Why would you want another taste of another drink besides the refreshing nectar that comes out of the Sprite Zero can?
Pre-pandemic, you're in a restaurant.
Yeah.
You're really excited about that food.
Yeah.
They don't have Sprite Zero. What do you drink?
Sprite.
They don't have any Sprite
I put
products.
up with the sugar.
They don't have any Sprite products.
Sierra Mist.
You wouldn't just have a glass of water?
Well, goddamn not, especially not with a meal I'm paying for. And bring me some free tap water.
If you're having something spicy, a glass of water is the best thing sometimes.
Who knows what that pipe has fucking had in it before it shot through it, and then it just pour the water out and blah, blah, blah.
Well, specifically with spicy food, you never just crave a clean, clear glass of water?
No, every once a glass of milk with your spicy food, and also it's good if you get pepper sprayed, splash it in your eyes. Also, what are you laughing about? You didn't know that about
dual
milk.
Purpose. That's great.
Get the milk in your face if you get pepper sprayed. It'll help you out. A good glass of milk if all else fails.
What kind of milk?
What the yak milk? What do you
No, I mean whole milk, 2%, fat-free, 1%.
I'm not going to goddamn break it down in a fucking high-quality restaurant. If I say bring me a glass of milk, I have a feeling.
You get milk in a restaurant?
No, wait, that was what you just postulated to me there, Turd Blossom. If I was in a restaurant and they didn't have the Sprite Zero, and I'd have Sprite. If they didn't have Sprite, then I'd have Sierra Mist. What if they don't have any soft drink? Then I'll take a glass of milk.
All right.
With my food to wash it down.
Why wouldn't you go with something like apple juice? Wouldn't that be closer to what you're looking for with the
Most
taste?
restaurants don't carry apple juice.
I guess they would carry milk in case any children are brought in.
Well, in case somebody wanted to build strong bones and teeth, they come in there and they say, "Excuse me, maitre d', restaurant gentleman, I'd like my children to have strong bones and teeth. Can you serve up a big glass of milk cold enough to hurt their teeth to each one of them so that they can drink it down and nourish themselves?" It's another thing. I take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin D every day, so I don't need the milk. And the milk can, and actually, if you drink enough milk, besides, giving you fucking clammy inside of your mouth, it can lead to that lactate intolerance, where you can't tolerate women that are lactating in your presence, or however the fuck that works. I'm not sure how it works.
Doesn't work like that. I'm sure of that.
But I'll tell you, when I ventured out this morning, and here's another thing, in the wintertime, I don't like to take a shower first thing in the morning and then go outside because it's fucking cold, right? It's like going out with Harley to wait for her to shit. You end up with icicles hanging off your nose. So I've got a mask on and I've got 2 coats on. It's fucking 19 degrees. I got 2 pair of sweatpants on, and I'm not going to take fucking studio photography, so I don't give a shit what I look like anyway. But as I come out with the gold, the liquid gold, with my Sprite purchases, I looked in the rearview mirror at myself when I took my mask off in the car. I said, what day did I last bathe? Because, see, that's the thing also. And you got children, so your day is filled with sunshine, lollipops, rainbows, and waterfalls. But here it's a little quieter at the castle. And it's just me and Stace and little Harley Quinn, and Harley keeps our hours. And so sometimes, this time of year, when I'm not going outside very often, and it's dark when I get up and it's dark when I go to sleep, the days just blend together. And I do this with you every goddamn day, it seems like. I'm sitting here spouting off at you. And the days are blurring together, and I'm starting to gauge when I last bathed on how long my whiskers are from when I last shaved. It's come to this.
That's the one thing people haven't seen. They have those sad images of you with the mustache in 91. But a Jim Cornette with a full gruff, not shaved.
Full gruff? Oh, yeah. They've seen me full gruff.
Oh, have they?
Very gruff. Downright cantankerous. But then you won't be seeing any of those images either, because, for heaven's sake, I don't want to look unkempt to the public. And here's something we got to bring up. I know this is your program, and I've just barged in here, and I got a couple of things to tell the people about, but there's something I wanted to bring up. Hold on here 1 second. There it is. I brought it up on the screen. We've got a new sponsor. We're going to talk about them later on. Our friends at Iolo. Not Andre Olio, but Iolo. We're going to talk about them later on in the program. However, they've started a trend here because they've brought to the attention of the public, by virtue of their advertising for their fine service, their fine product that they provide, that a lot of times when you type in the question, "Why is my," into the computating machine, the Googler, well, your answers come up. One of the most searched answers is, "Why is my computer running slow?" But now the cult of Cornette have taken it upon themselves to check their particular search engines on their computer-tators and their Googlers, and they're getting some interesting things coming up when they type in "why is my," and I just, as a sample, just one of them. There's some variations, but I just wanted to bring up this. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. According to this fellow who was on Twitter and under an assumed name, so I'm not going to credit anybody, but when you type in "why is my" into your Googler, Brian, what do you think the top 8 answers are?
The top 8? I have no idea.
Top 8.
Why is my
on here? So
why is my computer running slow?
Order.
Why is my computer running slow?
That's not in the top 8 here on this particular gentleman's Googler. But would you like me to go from number 1 to number 8 or number 8 to number 1? You pick.
Let's start with number 1. I'd like to see where this ends up.
Okay. And I guess number 1 means that's the one on the top, right? And then you go down.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. This technology and I are not friends. But anyway, the number 1 answer, according to this fellow on Twitter, as to when you type in why is my poop green? That's number 1.
Now, are these, I guess they're just a general why is my. It's not really towards the individual person. Well, what's number 2?
Number 2, this is not geared to this individual person, as you'll see here in a second, because he wouldn't be asking all these questions. This is the most often searched according to his searcher. Number 2 is why is my poop black? Now, see right there, if he's got green poop, he wouldn't be checking into the black poop unless it was alternating. And it was normally black, but on St. Patrick's Day, it turned green. Maybe that's... Number 3, why is my eye twitching? That is apparently an often asked question from some people with too much time on their hands on the internet.
Yeah, someone got Gene Anderson's computer.
Go! Number 4. Why is my tongue white? Because you've been drinking too much fucking milk because there's no Sprite Zero.
Well played.
What number was on? Number 5.
5.
Why is my pee cloudy? Most people's pee is pure as the driven snow, right?
Like Sprite Zero.
Like Sprite Zero, just completely opaque and see-through. And no, why is my pee cloudy? Number 6. Why is my hair falling out?
Because you're not using Keeps.
Bingo! That's it right there. You're not, and they're not even on the program this week, folks, but keeps them in mind. Number 7. I don't know why this would be that popular with this particular segment, whoever this segment of the populace is asking these questions. Why is my dog shaking? Possibly because it's shitting peach seeds. That's the only reason I can think. Have you ever seen a dog shake for any other reason than it's shitting peach seeds?
I've not experienced my dog just randomly shaking, nor the experience of seeing him shit peach seeds.
You've never. That's an old expression. He was shaking like a dog shitting peach seeds. He was nervous. He was shaking because if you watch a dog shit peach seeds, there'll be a shaking and a shimmering. And finally, on this particular screen here, number 8, why is my discharge brown?
All right.
Would you ask that question? Because here's the thing. If you're having discharge, does it matter the color? Wouldn't it just be, why am I discharging? Why is my discharge brown? The color of the shade of the possibly even the fragrance and or flavor of the discharge should not be uppermost in your mind as much as getting to the root of why you might be having the discharge, right?
That'll be the next search.
But there's one more, because another member of the cult of Cornette that, he likes to go a little too far, because he took the search one step farther than the why is my search. He put in a little bit more specificity. Specificity. He was more specific. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more. But he asked the question, Brian, are you ready for the top 8 answers to the question, why is my anus?
That was the question he asked?
That was the question. He wanted to see what it would fill out. What would come next automatically in the Googler machine.
Yeah, you said this guy went too far. I agree. He went too far.
He admitted it. He went too far, but he put that word in and he saw what came up or came out, as the case may be. And would you like to know from the... We'll go from the top again. We'll go from the top again, because this is
my show.
This is your show, but this is apparently the most often asked question on the internet by the human race. When the first 4 words are, why is my anus? The question is, why is my anus bleeding? That's most popular right off the bat. That's what everybody...
Very popular, yes.
That's what people most need to know. But there are other things they need to know about your anus or their anus. Certainly not my anus. I've never asked any of these questions. However, the next one is, why is my anus tightening? Apparently you're not working it out enough. I don't know what to tell you. Or is that when you're working out too much?
That's a good question. I don't know.
What is a tightening anus the result of? Too much or too little working out?
Too much time on a booking committee.
Too much time on my hands. Sitting on a bar stool talking like a damn fool. Got the 12 o'clock news blues. I've given up hope on the afternoon soaps and a bottle of cold brew. Is it any wonder I'm not a criminal? Is it any wonder I'm not in jail? But the number 3 most asked, I'm just doing anything I can not to have to talk about wrestling today. Number 3, why is my anus swollen?
I don't know.
Possibly a result of the tightening from too much or too little working out.
Maybe the peach seeds.
Well, no. It's not the peach seeds, because number 4, why is my anus twitching? That would be from the peach seeds. That is the 4th most popular query of, it's a question.
Yeah.
Query.
It is.
Number 6. Number 6, why is my anus wet? Why is my anus wet? Because you're sitting on a fucking wet stool. You have possibly you just passed a wet stool. You're sitting on a wet bench. You didn't come out of the rain. But now wait. A wild card about to come up. This one out of the blue, so to speak. Number 8, why is my anus purple?
What?
Why is my anus purple?
Because you're contorted over to look at it?
Either that or apparently the people who have green and black poop, it is combined to make a purple anus. We used to do that in school, right? When you, at art class, craft, when you combine the colors and you combine red, blue, and get green, you combine green and black, you get purple anus. Whoa. Number 9, why is my anus throbbing?
Weren't there only 8 to the other one?
I'm sorry, did I say no? That's number 7. I miscounted. I think we were at the end of 10. No, that was number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it doesn't really matter. But why is my anus throbbing? There's a great fucking joke from the 80s I could tell right now, but it wouldn't make any broadcast at all. They'd just leave it on the cutting room floor. And finally, We've gone from why is my anus bleeding, why is my anus tightening, why is my anus swollen, why is my anus twitching, why is my anus wet, why is my anus purple, why is my anus throbbing, and number 8, why is my anus always wet? There you have it.
Who are you clapping for exactly?
That is legitimate. Why is my anus always wet? Another fine product from Uranus.
What we don't know is if Google had the answer to any of those questions.
Well, I can't click on it here because it's a screen capture. So I don't know what the answers are, but there's a lot of people asking. I do want to make mention real quick. It's less than a week. It's this coming Sunday, Brian. Are you aware of this? Sunday, February 6th at noon Eastern, that the St. Valentine's Day Massa cameos go on sale. And I can't tell you, since we've been doing the cameos, the personalized video messages, I can't tell you a high percentage of the ones that we have done have been from the female sector of the audience, the reluctant audience in some cases, that they usually say, sometimes they're nice about it. It's all me and my boyfriend or my husband, or we listen to the show all the time. Sometimes they say, well, I can't stand you, but my boyfriend or husband or significant other just loves you and listens all the time, so this would be the greatest thing in the world to get him. And they do that even when it's not a holiday built around love and romance and kissing and hugging and squeezing and pleasing like Valentine's Day. So this is why we've decided, once again, we're going to blow it out Sunday, February 6th, noon Eastern. We're going to put them on sale. You can go to cameo.com/Jim Cornette, or just go to jimcornette.com and click on the Cameo button on the homepage. Takes you right there. And we're going to leave them on sale as long as we possibly can till we get as many, the most that we have time to fill that week. Hotchkiss has set back 2 days that week to fill the cameos, but get in early because usually the bulk of them go rather quickly and we don't want you to be left out. But give your sweetie a kissin' or a cussin' from me on video, courtesy of the fine folks at Cameo and Hotchkiss Featherbottom for their Valentine's Day. Can you think of a gift that says love and romance and here, this is going to make you horny any more than me on video? I mean, it's as far as you can go. What an aphrodisiac, Brian.
Get horny with corny?
There you go. The St. Valentine's Day Massa cameos. Get horny with corny. All the women will definitely get some on Valentine's Day from their significant other if they get that person a cameo from Jim Cornette. I can go out on a limb and say 100% of the guys that get a cameo from Jim Cornette from their significant other for Valentine's Day are going to try to get some that weekend.
What if it's the other way? What if it's women requesting that you break up with their boyfriend for them?
I could do that too.
That would be fun.
Just give me some details on the most egregious examples of why he's such a fucking irredeemable asshole, and I'll be more than happy to tell him off. And speaking of telling people off, I don't have to do that at the post office anymore when they get too close to me in the line, because Hotchkiss Featherbottom and his Aunt Fanny and Uncle Felcher are coming to the rescue, and we are reopening the Cornette's Collectibles store at jimcornette.com. That's going to reopen on Saturday, February the 12th. T-shirts, Cult of Cornette membership certificates, classic wrestling DVDs, autographed copies of Behind the Curtain, that fine graphic novel, and autographed pictures as well. The whole plethora will be available again. And I encourage everybody in the last couple of weeks of February, if you've been wanting any of those things, hop in here and get them now. I'm still going to be signing everything personally. Everything flows through me, but the Featherbottoms are going to be handling the labeling and shipping so we can get things out even faster to the folks, and now it'll hopefully only take a couple of weeks to get these things instead of a couple of months when I was doing this all by myself. And for those of you wondering about the final action, the Christmas variant action figure that we still had a couple hundred of, those are going to go on sale at some point in March when we have eased in and got everybody else their other products, because those are still time consuming. I'm signing everything by hand. But we're going to give everybody the chance at those. And then within the next several weeks, we're going to have some big news on action figure mayhem in the future. So, and nobody's expecting this. Nobody's going to call this like I called the finish of the Royal Rumble, Brian. I guarantee you that.
Not that you're someone new. Say I told you so.
Not that I would ever want to say I told you so, but actually I told you so on a clip on January the 9th on the YouTube channel, but we'll play some of it a little bit later on where I called the finish of the Rumble about 3 weeks ago. But anyway, but that's later on. This is your show. Let me know what you'd like to do with it, Brian. And then I'll tell you what to do with it.
Well, that's very kind of you. Of course, this is my show, and we do have lots of questions. Unfortunately, we also have a big review. So let's get that out of the way first, because this is one of the big ones. Even with all the other events that have been added to the schedule, the Royal Rumble still feels like one of the big ones.
Wait, still, or it did until Saturday afternoon?
Well, I have good memories of the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, memories like the corners of my mind. Oh, that's what we've got is memories. And, I'll just make this observation. 20 years ago, during it's been a little bit more now, but during the height of the Attitude Era, what everybody still remembers as being the glory days of wrestling now, Steve Austin, The Rock, and Stone, and Foley, and Undertaker, and on and on and on. They still had, however you want to phrase it, bad booking, silly booking, sports entertainment booking, bad comedy, but whatever. There were still issues with creative, obviously, but the difference was the talent pool then all came from the wrestling business. And that was the last generation that had started in the territories. The guys on top in 1999, most of them, The Rock being a standout exception, most of them had started in the last days of the territories. And there was still an element, even if they hadn't, they were being broken in by, worked with the guys that did come from the territories who had a different way of mentally approaching, facially approaching, physically approaching wrestling, fighting, the way, whether they were mad at someone or not, if they had an angle or an issue going on with somebody. And that's where you see, because we can't neglect the fact that, that time period we saw Triple H doing the necrophilia deal, and Mark Henry's got a transvestite in the locker room, or whatever's going on with the entertainment portion of the program that Shitstain was highly behind. And then Stephanie's comedy writer minions followed along in that vein. There were always goofy things going on, but the guys, you see the clips, Austin and McMahon, Angle and Taker, and all those guys, when they were having doing an angle, having a fight, doing a pull apart, a run in, not only were the people in the fucking stands screaming and waving and throwing the babies in the air, but the guys doing whatever they were doing, for the most part, looked like they were trying to fucking kill each other. Or there was chaos going on. Think back to the scene in the ring with Austin and Tyson. It looked like an HBO boxing aftermath thing that had gotten out of hand. There was legitimate looking chaos and energy and aggression and violence and guys with the testosterone flowing over the top, and people lunging at each other's goozle pipes.
And that was just in the crowd.
Yeah. No, that was in the 80s in Tulsa in the crowd. But that's the point, is you look back at all that footage and you go, these guys are going after each other and they're fucking, and it's chaos and people are yelling and screaming. And that's why, because what they were seeing looked like it was chaotic. And you're missing that feeling here. The talent then could overcome silly booking when they were able to go out and do what they did, which was fight and or wrestle and or shoot angles where they were supposed to be mad at people. That's if you didn't have that down in the wrestling business, you weren't on top until previous 10 or 20 years. The atmosphere that they've created now in the WWE, the fans sit there, even for good matches, which they see every once in a while. They sit there and they'll pop on a big spot that looks like it broke somebody in half, but they're not. And they'll pop on surprises. They'll pop on the pop spots, but they're not in any way. It doesn't seem like they're involved or invested in the match itself and who's going to win and how it's progressing. It's just, oh, okay, show me some more highlights of the car wreck. And the guys, this generation not only didn't come from the territories and didn't have a background in wrestling, but they didn't even come from OVW hardly anymore. The last, they've got their developmental program, but they're teaching, as we've mentioned, actors and entertainers and performers. They're not teaching the wrestling business. So these guys, it's not that they're not trying hard and working hard, and it's not that they're not even better athletes, all things considered, than the guys in the territories. They can run faster, probably jump higher, they're lower body fat. But nobody looks like they just want to fucking kill somebody anymore. The angles aren't chaotic and violent. The matches are, it's not what they're doing, it's how they're doing it. They don't come off and give you the vibe of this being a fight to the death for some reason, if it's a grudge match, and or the opposite side, as we talked about with Cody and Sammy Guevara, a babyface match where they were fighting in the arena and trying to kill each other like it was a blood feud. These guys just go out and perform the moves, whether they're against a babyface or a heel. It's a performance. They don't have any more vehemence toward the heel that they're supposed to hate than they have sympathy for the babyface that's supposed to be their friend, even if they do have to eliminate. They just do the same shit to everybody over and over. And the point is the chaos is not there, and the realism of the guys believing it is not there. Whether you knew what wrestling was or not, whether it be the Attitude Era or the Territory Era, you didn't often, and Brian, this is a question I'll ask you, tell me if I'm crazy or not, you didn't often see the talent, the wrestlers, especially the main event guys, look like they didn't mean what they were doing, even if you knew the business was a work.
I'd say that's true.
And I don't know, but it's the atmosphere the WWE has created. Like I said, the guys are working hard. They're taking more risks and hurting each other more than probably ever before, because they have to, because nobody believes anything. But the atmosphere that this publicly traded wannabe theme park company that wants to put smiles on people's faces and provide entertainment, the atmosphere they've created is that all these guys are taking bumps for mostly no reason, because people are not really into the matches, because they all know it's bullshit and they just want to see what they're going to be surprised by next, or watch some old lady get mowed down by a rainbow bread truck when she's crossing the street. And they know that the guys are not being allowed to say what they want to say, do what they want to do, or even call themselves what they want to call themselves. And on top of that, the guys now and girls, the talent in this current roster and regime have, for the most part, been taught that this is the way that you're supposed to be doing this shit. So they don't even know there's anything wrong with it. Is that a fair assessment of the WWE atmosphere right now, in your opinion?
Based on what I've seen, which is limited, yes.
I mean, based on observing the product, the matches, the shows, the way that everybody's going about what they're going about, that's what you would think. Having said that, do you want to start the Rumble, young Brian? Rumble, young man, Rumble.
I do. I watched the entire event with the exception of the Miz match. That was my bathroom break match.
How long did it take you to squeeze that one out? It lasted about 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, I got lost on my way to the bathroom and I ended up somewhere else.
Yeah, in the library. But the first match, and actually, to be quite honest, was this the best match? It had to be. Was Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
And they kicked it off, and thankfully, I've always said, I hate it when they put a world title match on first. In this case, these guys got in and got out before they got any of the rest of the show on either one of them. And also, by the time that Girls' Rumble was finished, Jesus Christ. I mean, there've been fucking people trapped in wells that just said, just go ahead and just cap it. Don't even bother to get me anymore after that thing. Anyway. It was for whichever one of the Universal title, one of the World Championships. But they've done good packages on this. We mentioned Rollins he seemed like he had more oomph to him in his promos about this. That he's Seth freaking Rollins now. Maybe they're letting him be a little bit more of him or whatever, that Monday Night Messiah thing. The Usos were barred because of the tag team match that we saw on the Raw the previous week. But I like Seth did the Shield entrance through the crowd to mock Roman Reigns, and it was actually more fun to watch him do that than it is to watch Moxley do it every fucking week.
Although his mouth appeared to be stuck in like a perpetual scream the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is he doing? And if you noticed on commentary, McAfee referencing the Shield brought up Roman and Rollins and Mox. So now, in their history, I guess he's Mox.
Well, that's because they want to make sure that everybody knows that the guy on the other channel is the one that flunked out and isn't there having the main event for them. But again, it wasn't Moxley coming out of the parking lot every week to face a fucking job guy for no apparent reason and with his all mean boo-boo face on. It was Rollins doing what their group used to do against the guy that he used to be in the group with, mocking him, and plus he didn't take as long. Moxley can't find that goddamn ring for shit. I miss Howard Finkel. That female ring announcer is a popcorn fart. She's trying to put all the razor blade gargling and the buffer in there and everything, but it just doesn't sound right. A female voice announcing a world championship fight of any kind. I'm sorry if that's sexist, but I wouldn't want to hear some fucking guy with a voice that sounded like Michigan J. Frog doing the goddamn, vocals in a Blondie song either. There's some things that,
Great example you pulled out there.
Heart of glass. Anyway.
I will say, I don't think there's any problem with a woman ring announcer doing the main event. However, you hit the nail on the head about how, I guess they're trained to talk with the gargling of the voice at certain points. It's so ridiculous. And it comes across like she's copying the other announcers that came before her as opposed to being anything real.
I like blue. Blue is one of my favorite colors, along with red. But this arena lighting is distracting as shit. And apparently not only the blue lighting was distracting to watch, but they had some kind of spotlights that they used intermittently throughout the show that was apparently blinding a significant section of ringside to the point where people in the building were chanting, "Turn the lights off." This was reported all over the place. You're getting into a TV studio now. If you pay $1,000 to go to the Royal Rumble Live, whether it's in Madison Square Garden or Tits McGee's Superdome in fucking Bossier City, Louisiana, whatever, you're paying to be part of a TV studio audience. It's not a big major arena show anymore. It's being shot at the mercy of television. This match was fucking probably, as I said, not only the best match on this show, but it's the best I've liked Rollins in a while. And Reigns is always good because he does his shit. And he does it well. But both these guys have the size. They've got the look. They've got the experience. They're professionals. Reigns' booking has been focused, and that's why he's the top full-time guy in the company. As we mentioned, Seth Rollins has been all over the place over the past few years, babyface, heel, this gimmick, that flunky, whatever, but he can still go in the ring. And I'm still surprised watching some of his shit as much as I was when he was Tyler Black. And I was going, how is that tall guy that big do this shit without killing himself? I don't know whether Heyman had a hand in this or not, but they had a lot of the big high-impact shit that he's a hallmark of because he's got the high-impact guys, but at least they did shit, but then they would let it breathe. They'd sell it afterwards. They'd both be incapacitated. Something would happen for the most part. Because at one point, Rollins power bombs Reigns through the announce desk, throws him back in, as he should, by the way. Have you noticed all the AEW guys blister a fucking guy on the floor and then leave him laying there? You can't beat him out there. He's going to get counted out. No, he's not, because your referees are all pussies. But in the WWE, if they fucking blister a guy, for the most part, they throw him back in the ring and try to beat him, which is the object. That's because they're trained at a more high level. And that's one of the things drummed into their heads. Sometimes guys don't do it anyway. But Rollins power bombs him through the announce desk, which looked great because he didn't clear it off first, and then threw him in and hit a splash off the top. It looked like it fucking killed him, and got a nice pop on a 2 count. And Reigns there for a while, he was selling because of the weird situation they find themselves in where they have to match up babyface and heels. Guys that are really good can subliminally and subtly turn emotions of a crowd to get the effect that they want. And we know what's good. Roman Reigns is going to finish this thing doing some heinous heel shit, right? But while he's trying to get Seth Rollins over as being on his level to make this match competitive, his selling, which you don't see him do a lot of to begin with, body language-wise, was kind of baby-face-ish. Did you notice that, especially when he'd take one of those forearm shots or whatever, the weak knees and and it wasn't like a heel overbumping or overselling because he's getting his comeuppance. He was subtly, okay, I'm going to let Seth be the heel here and be a prick, and I'm going to sell for him and establish him, because later on I know I'm going to fucking sodomize him with a rusty fishing knife. But it's just little shit like that these guys can do that. You know, Danielson does it over on the other side. Punk does it on the other side. There's a few people. Jericho might know how to do it, but has not the cardio or the pulmonary capacity to do it anymore. But you can do that, and the people don't even know sometimes it's happening, but just subtly, if you see a guy that you don't necessarily like, but he's kicking a shit out of another guy you don't necessarily like, and that guy's really selling, you kind of feel sorry for the guy on the bottom, right? You kind of feel sorry for the guy that's getting the shit kicked out of him if he's selling it right. if he's not selling like, oh my God, like a heel, like, oh shit, oh, I'm so hurt. But like, oh, it really hurts. It's just a little added more realism. You kind of get subtle sympathy. You see what I'm saying there, Mr. Last?
I do, yes.
So anyway, and Seth, the curb stomp. I don't know how he does that and doesn't, well, I don't want to say anything, but knock on wood, how he doesn't blow his knee on the leg he lands on. It's a lot of coordination. Anyway, all of Seth's stuff looked good. They didn't use any furniture or any gaga, and they weren't rushing. I made a note of that here part of the way through the match. When Reigns would take over, Rollins would counter with something, but Reigns then shit-canned him into the post and the floor and rattled him around ringside. Now, Reigns started, you could take it as that's heel shit, or you could take it as him making a little bit of a babyface comeback if you had sympathy for him. But he probably was a little stiff with that, because did you notice he had a shiner popping up on his left eye about halfway through the match? I didn't see how he caught it, but
I thought it added to the whole feeling of the match, too.
Well, yeah, because you're seeing marks pop up on these guys. And he got a big pop on the Superman punch. That's where I noted with the WWE audience, they pop on the big moves or the false finishes, maybe, and then they just sit right back down. Reigns hit a spear on the floor, threw him in, went for another one, and Rollins countered with the pedigree. That was a big pop. And you didn't expect to see that coming. That was a nice little inventive deal. Boom, boom, boom. They had twists and turns. They had momentum changes. They had good timing. Even when Rollins was selling shit, he would keep laughing at Reigns, and they were playing the mind games, and they would remark on that. And then, I'm really liking the match. And then finally, Reigns is fucking boom. I've had all I can stands. I can't stands no more. Bing, 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 and gets him in a front face lock. And Rollins is fighting for the rope and finally he gets the rope. And Roman Reigns won't break the front face lock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ding, ding, ding. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not even saying that they had to beat anybody. I'm not opposed to disqualifications. They're very beneficial in the wrestling business. I'm just opposed to finishes that are flatter than a plate full of piss. And he kept it on for a minute and then chased the referee out of the ring. He let go and chased the referee out. Reigns did. And this is what I'm writing. Is this it? They're not playing the music. Neither one's leaving the ring. I'm thinking certainly there's going to be a restart on this. And the people were all kind of sitting around like, And then the reason I see that they don't play the music is because there's an angle coming up. Reigns gets out of the ring, gets a chair, gets back in, and I write, they're not going to restart this. And Reigns proceeds to hit Seth Rollins with the chair 11 times over and over, and then leaves the ring, thinks better of it, comes back in, and just wails on him with 9 more. 20 chair shots like Paul fucking Samoan Bunyan. Okay, yes, he's a heinous heel. I'm not sure what all that did for Rollins. That was the finish that was called. That's why Reigns was trying to work even harder in the match to not make Rollins look completely like a fucking idiot. But why do you need to hit anybody in any angle 20 times with a fucking chair? Is it any wonder everybody's having spinal stenosis and multiple surgeries and shorter careers? And it wasn't a gimmick chair. He wore the chair out on Rollins, and he bashed he was being safe, and well, I won't say he was being careful. I will say he was being safe in terms of not committing heinous permanent injury, but at the same time, He was wearing that chair out, and Rollins too, and he beat the mat enough to bust the back out, which was even more dangerous because then there's sharp edges. But that would you can't. They couldn't have built to a more spectacular disqualification than that, to where that and then go right into that maybe even incorporate that in the disqualification. Reigns flips his shit and grabs a chair maybe away from Rollins, and then starts wearing him out and gets disqualified for that. Did you just hear was it a giant fart from the hot dogs at the arena, or was it the air coming out of the crowd when front face lock, immobile, won't break, DQ, ding, ding, ding?
I wouldn't say it's when the air came out of the crowd. I think that's when they lit the WrestleMania sign on fire later in the show. Quite literally, that's when the air came out of it. I mean, I thought it was a really good match. Like you said, it was the best Seth Rollins match I've seen in quite some time. It was kind of refreshing to see him in the Shield gear. He looks bigger than he actually is. But it was really good intensity. The finish, yeah, I mean, it was a bit much, but everything we see nowadays is a bit much. What isn't a bit much?
I mean, they could have thrown the car keys at him to a fucking Honda Accord out in the parking lot. He could have started that up, driven it down the entranceway, run over Rollins, and then backed up over him a couple times just to make sure. But, I mean,
But if he had done that, he may need to look for some parts for that car that he potentially ruined by running over that body.
That's exactly correct. And I'll tell you what, if, as a matter of fact, if either Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins was to call me up and ask me where to get quality auto parts, I would tell them both the same thing. Even though I don't know Roman Reigns, but Seth Rollins is an old friend of mine, I would tell them both the same thing. I'd lead them both in the right direction. And Brian, you know what that direction is. That direction leads right to our friends at RockAuto. The folks at RockAuto.com can find a part for your car no matter what kind of car you've got. Because you can imagine if you go into these brick and mortar stores, right? They might have a part for a Ford. They might have a part for a Chevy. But with all these makes, the Fiats and the Kias and the models, the Pacificas and the XT5s and all these various types of things, it's impossible for these stores to stock all the parts you need in a traditional way. So why would you go there and then have something you don't want forced on you and it might not fit? You can't put a square peg in a round hole, folks. You can't put a long dick in a short. So while you stand there and you wait for the counterman to try to force you into buying overpriced parts that you don't need, you could be on your computer right now at rockauto.com, because they will save you money. Money that you can use for other important things like the mortgage or food or child support or ransom or the ability to skip the country. That costs money these days. Just the COVID restrictions alone, if you're trying to leave the country under an assumed name, it costs a fortune. You need to go to rockauto.com and save some money so you can spend it on things like that. Why would you choose to spend 30%, 50%, 100% or more for the exact same auto part at a chain store or new car dealership than you would at Rock Auto? Why? You wouldn't. You would never choose to do that. Sometimes these big box stores and car dealerships, they send people to your home and force you to buy their parts. RockAuto.com does not do that. They merely put you on a special list if you don't buy their parts and you try to get service anywhere else.
There is no list. They don't put you on any list. Don't say that.
No, they list of preferred customers so that they can send you other offers of ways to save you money.
Only if you opt into that. They don't just take your name and put you on any list.
No. But they'll keep track of you. And if you move, they'll find you one way or another.
If you forward your mail.
Deals.
If you forward your mail.
Well, yes, and there's ways that they can locate you, but they want to know where you are. So if they can help you in any way, They won't have to look far. They can be right there for you like a beneficial big brother, looking over your shoulder, watching everything you see and do. Anyway, RockAuto.com is a family business. They've been serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. And if you go to RockAuto.com to shop for auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers, you'll find that they have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and blinker fluid. Whether it's for your classic driver, your daily driver, or in some cases, an illegal driver. If you haven't got a license and you get behind the wheel, you don't want to break down, because if the cops find you, then they will fucking throw the book at you. So if you don't have a driver's license and potentially you've got outstanding warrants, you want to go to rockauto.com and keep your car in tip-top condition. Don't be one of these murderers with 16 people buried in the crawl space in your basement that gets pulled over for a fucking taillight infraction and then gets sent to the goddamn electric chair. You want to go to rockauto.com or you want to go to Old Sparky? That's what I'm asking. And best of all, folks, the prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers and convicted felons. Go to rockauto.com right now.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to charge you more if you've had a conviction. rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck that you'll ever need. And there'll be a box somewhere around rockauto.com that says, how did you hear about us? You just put JCE in that box and they'll know that's how you heard about them. They won't give you any extra deal because the prices are so low. The next step is paying you to take this shit. But just write JCE in anyway, because they like to keep track of us too. We've got a quota to meet. And
now we're on a list.
Yeah, we're on a list. And I want to make sure that they let Swami go at 5:30 today.
Oh my God, where's Swami?
He's going to be let go at 5:30 today if rockauto.com gets a lot of JCEs written in their box. So
help me, people, please.
Yeah.
Please, I just want my Swami back.
Well, just remember that small bills, non-sequential serial numbers in an unmarked brown paper bag, or you actually use a McDonald's bag.
What about crypto? Did they take crypto?
No, Crypto, the super dog, no, they didn't take him. They took Swami. That's your dog. Anyway, all right, so I've already got kind of a bad taste in my mouth on this program because of the finish of the match, even though the match was good. But now to make sure that I have halitosis, the next matchup was the Women's Rumble. Rumble, young girl, rumble. How long was this thing?
Oh, it went by quick. It felt like 10 minutes.
So, here's the thing. Do you remember It's a Mad, 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 Mad World?
I do remember that movie. Yes, I tried to make my kids watch it about a year and a half ago. They refused.
Tried to make them and they didn't want to, and it didn't hook them, did it?
Nope.
If you're a Hollywood comedy purist like you and me, yeah, we've seen It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. But for the uninitiated out there, in 1963, I don't remember what studio it was, but a major motion picture company thought, we're going to make the funniest comedy movie in history. We're going to sign up every comedian and comic actor in Hollywood still alive to either have a starring role or a cameo part. They had everybody from Milton Berle to Dick Shawn, Mickey Rooney to the Three Stooges. It was a star-studded affair. Stanley Kramer was the director, right?
I'm not certain.
Big time Hollywood director. A lot of stuff. Spencer Tracy was the antagonist in the piece that died in a wreck and left the clue to where the secret treasure was buried. A lot of stars.
Buddy Hackett.
Buddy Hackett was in the film.
Uncle Milty.
Did I mention Ethel Merman? The point is, it was 3 hours long. It had every comic actor in Hollywood in it, but it wasn't as funny as any of their individual movies because the material comes into play at some point and it drug, right? And it was a chase that never ended. And when it finally did end, it wasn't that satisfying of a conclusion. That's the way I feel about the Women's Rumble without knocking anybody in it. Without saying that all these women weren't stars, and there were a number of old friends and acquaintances of mine in it. It was a big budget production that was too long with too many stars and not enough story. And it drug. So I was watching things happen, and finally I had to start skipping ahead a little bit just to find me somebody that I wanted to see. And here comes Rhea Ripley, number 16. She's a fucking movie star. She comes down the aisle like a badass. She sees the girls that she's mad at. And she goes in the ring, and they took over on her before she had done one thing. And they get some steam on her, and then she comes out, and she eliminated the two that she was mad at, and she gave the others some bumps a minute later, but it wasn't an Andre the Giant in a Battle Royal Impact. And we'll talk about this here later on in the Men's Rumble clip, because it was more egregious then, with a lot of people just wandered into the ring in these Rumbles and just everybody ignored them. And they just went and found somebody to start wailing on. Charlotte was out right after Rhea Ripley. They should have laid out a few while Ripley was in there, so when Charlotte came out, we could get a nice face-off with them without the other distractions. But basically, Charlotte leveled Rhea, dumped another girl, and did some spots with Naomi. All right. I'm skipping to Ronda Rousey because I'd already heard the news. 48 minutes into this match, Ronda Rousey makes her entrance, and it woke the people up. And though the news had been out that she was coming back imminently, that she was going to do something, but they didn't know what. So it was a nice surprise here in the Royal Rumble. Already people are starting to go, well, she's not going to bring any MMA fans to the WWE because, you know, she lost her last few fights there and now she's in the phony wrestling business, whatever. She's still a star. People know her name. She's going to attract attention and publicity. Now the problem there is, well, two problems, actually. Number one, the most diehard WWE fans that would be most predisposed to like and cheer for her being back are still pissed off at her because she ran her pie hole about the fake fighting in the wrestling business a couple years ago when apparently she thought she was going to just have babies at Browsy Acres and not do this anymore. So they're mad at her. And the manner in which she was exposed here in this match was completely the antithesis of the way that she got over to begin with, and that she could continue to get over if they didn't put her in positions like this. She was out there too long. She's too green for this environment. She can't do enough different stuff. I would venture to say, has she ever been in a battle royal before? I can't imagine where she would have been. Would you?
I don't remember if she was ever in a Royal Rumble before. That's my only other thought.
Well, she only debuted at 3 WrestleManias ago, and she's been gone for a couple. So this might, okay, if this was her second one, Jesus Christ, I got thrown in battle royals on spot shows in front of 150 people in Steele, Arkansas, or Steele, Missouri, and Osceola, Arkansas, when I first got started. And it's not an easy thing to, even if you can do shit, it's hard to do shit that looks good in that environment with that many moving parts. And there's things you don't want to take bumps with a crowded ring, blah, blah, blah. The point is, she needs the spotlight, bursts of action that she looks good in, and that's how she got over in UFC, beating those girls in a minute with the armbar. and that she got over in her initial match in the WWE in that mixed tag when everything was set up to make sense and showcase her strengths. And there was a lot of time here she was just left to wander around. And then Shayna Baszler came in at 30, and they acknowledged each other, and then they did some shit with other people, and then Baszler blasted Ripley and tossed a couple of others or whatever, but went to square off with Ronda, and the people came up, okay, the two shooters, and then Charlotte and the other girls got in the way. So we didn't see that. And again, the longer that this went, it was worse because Rousey looked like an amateur, which in some respects she still is because she's not done this very much and for a while. So Lita and Rhea Ripley were good together for about 30 seconds. I wouldn't mind seeing more Lita. And then Charlotte dumped Lita. Rousey did that nice spot where she got Ripley in a triangle with her arm, but around the rope, sort of like the upside down octopus thing and blah, blah, blah. And as they're in the ropes and Ripley's leaned over it, Charlotte dumps Ripley. So at least Rhea had an out, but you know, Charlotte was great as usual. She dumped Belair and Baszler, and it come down, Brian, to Charlotte and Rousey. And I wrote, now we go to school. And they faced off, and Charlotte went for a big kick to the face, and Rousey ducked it and just dumped her. Just boosted her over the top and dumped her. That was it. She won. I'm sure we'll see that match now at WrestleMania, I would think. But it would have been nice to see all that shit they had Rousey doing to keep busy when there were all those other girls in there. Now all the spotlight is on her and Charlotte. They couldn't do 90 seconds to give us a little tease like, oh shit, this is going to be good, and then dump. What'd you think?
Rousey had those Shane McMahon punches going.
Oh boy.
That was the first thing she started doing, was throwing those punches. And I was like, oh, I don't remember that. And then she just kept throwing those punches. And it was an interesting outfit for her return. And
I don't remember what she wore before, but it didn't look like that, did it?
No. And then, you know, unfortunately, the surprise got out a day or two earlier that she was going to be there. But it still seemed like the fans were pretty surprised by it. So that's the reaction you want. The fans really don't care about what internet wrestling gossip is. But it went on a while. I would have debuted her. I would have not debuted her. I would have brought her out maybe number 28, maybe number 29. She was in there a while, and it did expose her a little bit.
And, you know, and I won't even say necessarily they were surprised, as just happy that she was in the match. They probably knew they were going to see her in some form, or if not that night, then imminently. But she got a pop because people know who she is. If they can keep her from having another one of her mental meltdowns, if she, you know, like she had in the UFC, or getting pissed at the fans and calling the business fake fighting.
Yeah.
If they can just keep her on track, she won't run anybody else away, but she can also be a great heel. I don't know what they're going to do with her, but.
Notice they released Nia Jax right around the time they would have known she was definitely coming back.
Well, okay, now, so what do you think would happen? What do you think would happen if old Nia Jax and Ronda Rousey went at it? Because as we mentioned, would Ronda be able to put her armbar on a telephone pole? It's like doing wrestling moves to a couch, a refrigerator with a cape. She'd have to blow her up and then tap her out on the ground some kind of way like a beached whale. But
yeah, I think it would be like Keith Hackney versus Manny Yarborough.
Yeah.
From that early UFC where, you know, once you get him down on the mat, then it's game over.
But just watch out for if Nia was to try to work with her. That could lead to serious injury. Speaking of serious injury, the next match on this program, we're just going to take a second here, and then we can do an entertaining commercial for everybody. Becky Lynch versus Dewdrop. I wrote, seriously? And again, Dewdrop, the person, I've never met, don't know, and she can move around for that size, and maybe she can work a little bit, but the gimmick is Bad Outlaw, and the name is Bad Outlaw, and she's doing the Heather Feather fucking bows or, knots in her hair, whatever they call them, like a 6-year-old girl. All she needs is the giant all-day lollipop. It just, and when you're talking about Becky Lynch, who, as we've mentioned, was a couple of years ago, was the hottest talent in the company, and she's going out to face Dewdrop. And did you see, and they replayed it 4 times, and this is the first time I've seen the WWE television crew do a slow-mo replay where they didn't, you see the graceful part in slow-mo, and then before the contact is made, they speed back up to regular speed, right?
Always, yeah.
But on this one, old Dewdrop, Becky Lynch is laying there, trusting in being perfectly motionless. It can't be like you moved. And Dewdrop came off the ropes and jumped up and just did that backsplash. What do they call it? The senton or whatever. And just jumped up in the air and landed flat on Becky Lynch with all her weight. And Becky's entire body disappeared. And what the fuck? That would be the man, woman, child, animal, vegetable, or mineral. A big fat motherfucker jumps up in the air and lands on me like that. That'll be the last time you find me laying there. And they showed it in ultra slow motion because you couldn't see through it. Apparently, during this match, they had set the pyro off around the WrestleMania sign for Rousey's victory. And then this match follows it, and the WrestleMania sign, apparently, it didn't actually catch on fire, they say. It was just burning and melting. It wasn't like flames leaping off of it. It was melting. And it was over the top of this giant floor seating section, and they had to evacuate a big section of the floor. So during this match, everybody's looking over to the right to the melting WrestleMania sign. Becky even one time said, I set that sign on fire. Because she didn't set the ring on fire, not with Dewdrop. Your thoughts on the incredible melting sign match, Brian?
I really wish we could have seen some of the fire. It sounded really exciting. The only thing I'll say is Becky Lynch is so committed to what she's doing, there are no holes in her being Becky Lynch. If you watch her facial expressions the entire time, she's into what she's doing. Now, who she's working with or the kind of character of the person she's working with, the big child or whatever it is, that's a problem. But Becky Lynch is really, really good at what she's doing.
Do you think if they'd have started about 6 weeks ago and done anything between Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley, that would have been a better match, better performance, potentially, if not sold a few more tickets, at least got a little bit more interest in this show than Becky Lynch and Dewdrop?
I certainly would have been more interested in that match.
But instead, no, Brian. The dew was dropped on us like it was dropped on Becky Lynch. And I felt just as sore afterwards as I'm sure Becky Lynch did after working with the Dewdrop. And I've just got to think, she wasn't in too good a condition after that, probably that match. Maybe she was running a little slow, Brian. What do you think?
Well, she may be running a little slow, but her computer has no reason to run slow now.
I'll tell you what, that's right. And maybe even her poop is green. We don't know. And potentially her dog is twitching. We're not sure about that. But, folks, if your computer is like Becky Lynch and is running slow, then don't pick a Dewdrop up and throw it down on your computer. Go to our friends at Iolo, IOLO.com. Because did you know, Brian, we've talked about this in recent weeks, making your computer run faster can also make it more private and secure because it's always being slowed down by these unwanted apps and these tracking apps. And if you have you can tell if you have a tracking app on your computer, you're going to see footprints in the snow, you're going to see broken branches, and potentially you're going to see some old bearded guy wearing a bunch of fucking fur skins with a big stick, and he's going to be kneeling down with his ear to the ground. That's when you know where you got tracking apps on your computer. They follow you around the web or your backyard.
That's not how it works, no.
It's not?
No.
Well, I'm sorry, they don't follow you around the web, just in your backyard.
No one's in your backyard, and you have to be very careful about your behavior on the web, and Iolo can help you today.
Well, that's right, because you never know. If you're behaving improperly on the web, there are penalties for that. Viruses and malware can slow you down. And malware, well, he's almost as bad as his cousin Coco. You remember Coco Ware? Mal was he was the delinquent in that family.
Oh, come on.
But that's not all, folks. Social sites and criminals alike are cashing in on personal data that they collect from you. And if they come to collect and you don't give it to them, they break your fingers. I'm not trying to scare you here, but they will fuck you up. But there are simple steps that you can take to protect your privacy and identity. That's why when you type, "Why is my" into Google, one of the options that some people are getting is "computer so slow." That's a question thousands of PC users ask every day. So it's fair to say, I think it's fair, performance lag is a significant complaint. I've had that complaint from, well, all three of my wives at one time or another about performance lag. I know that quite a few women specifically are upset about the lagging in performance. So you can speed up, secure, and simplify your digital life with Iolo's all-in-one Windows optimization, antivirus, and online privacy software suite called System Mechanic Ultimate Defense. Yes, folks, get SMUD.
SMUD.
If you've got multiple PCs at home, or if you've got multiple M&Ms at home, movie phones or move phones. If you move phones, or why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you'd like me to see? Tablets and smart TVs, if you do these things, you probably play what? You probably play the IT manager. That's IT, not it. Who wants to be an IT manager? Nobody. Well, Iolo's System Mechanic Ultimate Defense, SMUD, comes with a tech support plan that covers all of your internet-connected devices. This means whenever you have a tech issue, you make one phone call and Iolo will fix your issue immediately at any time of the day or night. Let's say, for example, 3 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and you say, "God damn it, I've got to piss." You don't want to get up in the cold and cruel hallway and walk to the cold bathroom and take a piss. You make one phone call and Iolo sends somebody over to your house to collect the piss while you're still in bed. Are you going to disagree with that?
Why should I even continue? I don't even know. Just when I think I finally got you back on track, this pissing.
It says whenever you have an issue, you make one phone call and they'll fix it.
Whenever you have an issue online.
The only time I have an issue at night is when I've got to get up and piss. That's why I thought of that.
They're not going to help you.
I never usually have any other issues at night. But anyway, they're available.
Yes.
They're available. They got 24/7 live tech support located right here in the USA, so you can find these motherfuckers if they lie to you. You should try SMUD for anyone concerned about their computer's productivity, online footprint, and security. Folks, it maximizes processor power, unleashes internet speed, increases drive speed, but be sure to follow all state and local regulations on the speed of your driving. Generally, 55 miles an hour across the country is an accepted speed, although the interstates can go up 70, but it increases your drive speed, just not too much. And it protects against all kinds of things. So don't wait. If you were planning to wait, stop it. Do not plan that. Do not wait. Visit Iolo, IOLO.com, and use the code JIM, J-I-M, and save 60% on the System Mechanic Ultimate Defense SMUD and get 30 days of live tech support free. That's Iolo.com and use the code JIM. 60% off SMUD, 30 days of live tech support free. I guess they'll send an actual live technician then over, right? It says live tech support. This is not anything. This is somebody's going to be coming to your fucking house, people.
No, someone will be talking to you. Well, maybe not even talking. Someone may be chatting with you. I don't know exactly how they do it, but
well, if it would talking,
no one's coming
another
over.
Word for talking.
No one's coming over.
Why would they not be talking to you? They'd be chatting with you.
Well, chatting connotates a different way of communication, like text messaging.
No, if you chat with somebody, it's a lighthearted chat. It's not about serious matters. You don't chat about serious things like international geopolitical turmoil. But chatting is still a verbal means of communication. Hold on here one second. American Heritage. Here,
I got my dictionaries here too.
Well, my dictionary's bigger than yours is.
I don't know about that.
Chat, chaste, chasten, chastise, chattel, chat, to converse in an easy manner, an informal conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in person.
Conversing in an easy, it doesn't say not in person.
I'm saying not in person.
Then you're writing someone.
Definitely at least that.
All right, well, these people at Iolo will write you back.
Definitely at least that.
So, now that we've chatted about that, for the second world championship of the night, and actually, even the night is too grand. For the second world championship match in the previous 2 hours, Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman took on Bobby Lashley with MVP in his corner. And again, they set everything up. Lashley has come out of this better, I thought, in the way that they did the pay-per-view New Year's Day in Atlanta, where Lashley was the one that got offense on Brock. Lashley was the only one that he didn't get even with. They've done a good job with putting Lashley in this Brock and Reigns, a conflict situation to where he is just as credible as the other two guys. And we wondered, exactly how they were going to do this, since they lucked into Brock winning the title in Atlanta. He wasn't supposed to because of Reigns getting COVID, but then that was even better because Brock and Roman both were the champions, and that juiced their business up. But then we also speculated and pontificated, well, are they going to try to throw a bunch of different guys in here, make it multiple man matches or whatever? And then I had been mentioning that, they've got these guys in a great situation where Brock and Reigns hasn't happened. But Brock won the championship, but he didn't beat either Reigns or he didn't beat Lashley for it. But Lashley hadn't been beaten, et cetera, et cetera. So this match here, should we play the clip now or should we wait until the Rumble?
Wait until the Rumble.
Let's wait. Okay, we'll wait until the Rumble. We have a clip we're going to play of something we said here a few weeks ago. In this match for the title, Brock versus Lashley, Heyman even jumped in and did Brock's introduction with a little babyface juice on it. Again, that subtle thing. It wasn't much different than the way he normally does it, but because the people are into it and they're even chanting it louder, because in this situation, they're the baby faces. Just Paul's expression on his face and just the little juice he put into it. He was enjoying for once he gets to be a baby face. See, Paul, you should have done it when I did it against you fucking 30 whatever years ago. You'd had some fun. But anyway, as soon as this match started, they did the stiff lockup. And, they're two bulls. I wrote down, I'd like to see these two guys wrestle a little bit. And I don't know, I guess we've just gone so far away from the actual sport part of this business that they don't do it, and it probably people wouldn't know what they were looking at. But both these guys were amateur wrestlers at about as high a level as you can get. And in the old days, when you had a couple of guys with a background like that, just for themselves, if not even for the people, they'd have a friendly shoot for a minute or two and just wrestle. And it's not like it exposes any of the business, because these are both high-level wrestlers. Jack Briscoe, I think, did it a couple times with Dale Lewis. You know, Brock and Angle have wanted to play around a few times in the past. But they could have actually wrestled for a little while under the friendly agreement that, okay, I'm not going to fucking hold you down if I get you, give me the Iggy and I'll let you sit out and we'll continue, but just to see what happens. We've talked about little friendly shoots in the middle of a match before amongst guys who are capable of doing it. But I don't know. What the fuck? What do I know? They just traded German suplexes 15 times. Brock, German, Bobby, German, Brock, German, Bobby twice. They went back and forth. Bobby hit 2 spears. He moved and Bobby went for another one, but instead went through the barricade. And I mean, you can tell Heyman's got, his fingerprints on this, because he likes the big moves and the high impact. And it was a big man match with impact moves. It wasn't smooth. And these guys really shouldn't be that smooth, but I think this may have been one of those things that went a little long. And Brock ended up Germaning Lashley so often that it looked like Bobby was getting tired of landing on the back of his head and started turning sideways. And then he was getting Germaned on his right shoulder. Did you see that? As time went on, he was going straight over less often and sideways over more often.
I was surprised how many times he went over.
Well, that's bound to get monotonous. And then Brock went for the F5. Lashley got the hurt lock. And Brock struggled in it for a long time, and it looked like a struggle. And you could, okay, boom, this is, it put the hold over, and then finally turned around and smashed Lashley into the turnbuckles, but he pancaked the referee at the same time. I was like, oh, shit. Well, out of the pancake, Brock boosts Lashley up and gives him the F5, but as he spins him, the referee staggered out from the corner and got wiped out with the legs. And boom, so now Brock's got the cover, but there's no referee. And so Brock gets up, and before we go into the finish, did you feel at that point a little bit like, was it letdown or relief? Because these two guys didn't mesh as good as you would imagine Brock and Reigns will, or that you can know that Reigns and Lashley have. The match wasn't there. And then once they bumped the referee and I said they're going home, it seemed like there should have been more, but at the same time, they'd already gone too long. Can both those things be true at the same time? We wanted more, but they'd already been out there too long.
Yes. Both of those things are true.
Did you feel those same emotions?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted the match to kind of be a different thing, but I got into what it was. I can't say I didn't. And I got to the point where I said, they really can't beat Lashley here, because then he's just dead. And, well, they didn't.
Well, but again, both these things can be true. They did a sports entertainment finish. Lashley needed to win, and I'm not opposed to Brock being fucked in this instance, but after the referee goes down, cover from the F5, no referee to make the count. Brock stands up. Reigns comes in out of nowhere and spears him. Boom. And down he goes. People go, oh, shit. And then Reigns looks at Paul. Paul looks at Reigns. Reigns holds his hand out. Paul hands him the title belt. Reigns turns around and hits Brock with the belt. Lashley covers. Reigns gets out. the referee at that moment. Now, here's the thing. We've talked about this. There was no urgency on this thing. It takes so long because they're milking, because it's sports entertainment, and they're milking everybody's milking everything so long that people already in their minds knew what was going to happen and predicted it each time before it did, because it was being milked so long. But also, this is my biggest complaint. You've got criminals committing a crime while the cop's back is turned, and they're not rushing. Because they know the only excuse for this, the only explanation, they know that nobody's going to interrupt them, and they're going to get away with it. Because, again, could not Reigns have rolled in immediately when the referee went down, and after Brock got the cover long enough so you could see he could have got it? Reigns rolls in, spears him. Oh my God, he jumps up on the apron of the ring like he's, oh my God, and Reigns looks up at him, and they exchange a look, and Reigns sticks his hand out and says, give it to me, and Paul flips him the fucking belt and jumps down, and he turns around and bashes Brock over the head with it and dives out of the ring. They've done the same thing. They didn't telegraph it. Nobody in the building missed it, unless they're looking at the burning sign. So it's not like you needed to milk this where everybody could understand it. They would have understood that. They would have understood that. They would have understood also that these guys were trying to get away with something. And MVP was not even focused on. He was just running around in the periphery of the thing. But there should have been a moment where, when Paul was to hand Lashley the belt, that MVP would get a big smile, like, oh, because he wasn't in on it. They couldn't let anybody in on it. It was a big secret. But now he's happy, and then he could have even fucking offered to shake Heyman's hand on the way by. But as it was, the referee was down for an elongated period of time. Everybody was standing around looking at each other, telegraphing this thing, and then when it happened, suddenly then the referee is fine right at that exact moment. You can do this quicker with less milking. Vince has always loved shit to be milked. But you could do it. The people wouldn't miss it. They would understand it, but it would look more like something that was naturally unfolding and not a dramatic reading of Shakespeare. So good finish in theory, but so slow. It's like, what'd you think?
Didn't bother me as much as it bothered you. It was a little drawn out with Heyman handing over the belt and then all of a sudden doing his little march over to just walking off with Roman Reigns. And it certainly sets up a lot of intrigue for where they're going for WrestleMania.
And I wonder, do they tell Heyman or any manager, do they say, okay, do this, and then don't try to get any heat off of it. Just return to your position with your head down, like you're trying not to watch your dog taking a poop. If I'd have done something like that, I would have been, I told all you motherfuckers I was going to get even.
A little disappointed, too. I like Heyman with Brock. It's always weird when they're not together.
Well, but the problem is, if they want to keep Heyman around, is they want him in the corner of the guy that shows up 3 times a year, or the guy that's there every week.
Right.
Hell now, then. We come to the next match, a mixed tag team match, playa, with Edge and Beth against Miz and Maurice. I liked Maurice better when she was one of the Bee Gees. I like Edge and I like Beth Phoenix, and they're both very talented. Beth worked with us here in OVW. I was there when they signed Edge and Christian in the 90s. Great people. I've only seen a few Miz matches in my life, and only under these circumstances when I was instructed to watch the event to critique it, and I've never seen Maurice have a match in my life. And as I started watching this, I became convinced that I'd never seen Maurice wrestle a match because it looked like she never had before. But, you mentioned you went to the bathroom. I started playing with Harley. She wanted a carrot. Then she needed a drink of water. She was up on the bed, so I had to get her drink and her bowl and bring it up to her. And about that time, I noticed that Beth was making a comeback on Maurice. And I'm like, okay, we're about to go home here. We'll get to the men's rumble here in a second. And Beth then beat up The Miz. And then they went into some more stuff. And I said, this is continuing? And I fast forwarded for a considerable period of time after that and got to the end where Edge and Beth hit double glam slams on the Hollywood twins, and boom, 1, 2, 3. And you went to the bathroom, and that's pretty much what I saw. And we were 3 hours in at that point, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing or what I was hearing. But if I thought then that I couldn't believe what I was seeing and couldn't believe what I was hearing and couldn't believe why is my anus throbbing from watching this show 3 hours in, did you see what they did next, Brian, when they plugged the super show they've got coming up in February?
I missed this.
Oh, this was brilliant. I think Goebbels or Goering would have fit right into Vince's television production. Which one was the minister of propaganda? Possibly it was Goebbels. They did an advertisement for their super show in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia in February. Had the graphics, said Saudi Arabia bigger than Christmas. Remember, they used to not even try to say that, but this Jeddah, Saudi Arabia super show at the Jeddah Dome or something. And they immediately segued from that into a profile of a Medal of Honor recipient who happened to be sitting at ringside. And they profiled him and showed footage of him in Afghanistan and showed Obama giving him the Congressional Medal of Honor, and then had him stand up at ringside and had the entire arena salute him. All these things are very wonderful things for someone to do for this American hero, which that's what they called him, an American hero. It just happened by sheer chance, sheer happenstance, that they placed this particular spot, this particular profile, this particular honoring of this young man that they never almost ever do in any other circumstance, right after they announced to the people they were going back to Saudi Arabia. How do you make the idea of we're going to take all these people and do this big show in Saudi Arabia patriotic? You follow it up with, as before they can boo, with honoring an American serviceman. This was as see-through as a goddamn window in a fucking glory hole. You didn't see this.
I missed this part. I wasn't back yet, no.
I was, oh my God. Because, it may have gone past some people. But it's hard when you know that everybody has been up in arms. Not only are a lot of the fans upset that they do business with Saudi Arabia. It's not like they're not making enough money. But also that some of the boys have refused to go to Saudi Arabia. That some of the boys thought they weren't going to get at one point to leave Saudi Arabia. And so to mitigate the heat that they've got for taking the blood money, I believe it's termed, by some of their, employees or talent or whatever, they follow that announcement with, and by the way, let's spend 3 minutes putting this serviceman over. Just to make sure, well, what can they say now? Wouldn't you know who won the pony? Anyway, are you ready for the men's rumble?
Yeah.
Well, AJ Styles and Shaky Nakamura started it out, but Austin Theory was in number 3. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to be interested in this. I'm going to keep an eye on this. And Austin Theory, by the way, I haven't mentioned this, but he's left-handed. which makes it even more remarkable that he's just, but I kept watching and people kept coming in and they do shit, but it wasn't really anything worth writing down. And there wasn't any, show-stopping moment for a while. And I'm trying to get in. Finally, here comes Johnny Knoxville. I said, okay, now that's my official chance to fast forward because I'm not going to dignify a publicity stunt, right? So I skip ahead for a while, but I stop when here comes Almost. You may know him as Omos, folks, but he's almost to me because he's almost but not quite ready to be out in front of people. They got a 7'3", 400-pound guy in a battle royal. How can you fuck this up? They've obviously set this up. This doesn't take Pat Patterson, something this obvious. I'm thinking this guy's going to look like a world beater. Ooh. Oh, Lord, shoot up here amongst us, because one of us needs a little relief. Everybody bounced off of him, and he dumped a couple of guys, but he didn't look good doing it. And he needs a lot of work, and I don't know how old he is now, but with the current life expectancy of human beings on the face of the planet Earth, I don't know if he's going to live long enough to get good. Priest goes after him, Damian Priest, and he just dumps him. And then 5 other guys try to dump Almost, and then Dominic comes in and he joins, and AJ just runs and hits all those guys with a big, flying stinger splash or whatever, and old Almost rolled over the top rope and landed on his feet and acted shocked. Bleh. This is what I was talking about earlier with the Women's Rumble, but it was obvious here. Guys would come in and nobody would feed them or even acknowledge them. Obviously, there were parts where somebody that came in meant something and they had something set up that they went into, but a lot of guys would just come in, and even if it's just, a mid-card guy, I'm not saying that everybody needs to feed them and that they need to bump everybody in the thing and look like $1 million against the entire roster in there, but there's nothing worse when a guy comes into a Royal Rumble Battle Royal and everybody's fighting and nobody turns and even looks at the guy, and he's just got to run over and start wailing on somebody from behind. They know the order that people are entering. They know who's going to be in the ring when they come in. You can't go to somebody and say, hey, when I come in, come at me. I'll duck a clothesline, drop kick the other guy, pick you up for a slam, and the other guy can fucking reach his hand in my pants from behind, stick his finger up my anus, whatever. They just come in and look around and see if anybody's, I'll punch somebody. Most guys didn't make an immediate impact. And in some cases, you would see where guys would come in, and as soon as they'd roll in, before they really did anything, somebody would stop them and boom, 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 and put them in the right place. Somebody else would come over and they'd set up where that person that just came in could come out from under and do something. Well, fuck you. That's good for the later stage of when you're in the thing, but if you come in a rumble and they stop you immediately and kill your momentum, you hear sometimes the people, they're kind of up for a guy coming in the ring, but he doesn't do something right off the bat and they come down, and then 30 seconds later he gets to come out from under something. Well, it's too late. Fucking horse done left the barn. Dog done took his shit. It's not the same. Don't stop the momentum. Let a guy come in and throw 3, 4, 5 somethings, drop kicks, punches, whatever the fuck, and look like something, then stop him down for a second, and then give him a spot to come out from under of. When somebody comes in, especially somebody that people aren't predisposed to really worship or love anyway, and they don't do something right off, people just kind of, and they start looking at the other fight in the other corner. And AJ Styles dumped Austin Theory out with a nothing spot. There's no big bill. There was no big attention. It was just, thanks for coming, Austin. Well, he lasted 22 minutes. That's not as big a compliment as it used to be when this fucking thing feels like it lasts 3 hours. Did you see Booger? His new look? The haircut, the neatly trimmed mustache. He looks like Freddie Mercury and Dan Severn had a love child.
I thought that was Dan Severn. But yes, I saw the new
No,
one.
if it'd been Dan Severn, he'd have been throwing more people out. Matt Riddle came in on his little scooter, his little buddin'. Have I mentioned that I hate this guy more every time I see him?
Yes, you have.
And he came in, he jumped
And you're
over
not the only one.
No. There's a bunch of people. I have a feeling Randy Orton's probably about fed up with this guy at this point. And we'll talk about another one in a second, but when he kicked his flip-flops off, no birds flew out of his ass. That's the best part of his entrance. I wanted to see the birds. Happy Corbin and Mosh Pit Jones came in and did more than the actual real talent was allowed to do in this thing. Then, of course, Drew McIntyre is back. He's been injured. He's been out for that, but he was back as a surprise. And the first thing, Drew McIntyre, who was the chosen one, no pun intended, he was supposed to be the chosen one, 15 years ago when he first came in the company, and that didn't last. But he came back. They were pushing him. He beat Brock Lesnar, didn't he? He won the world title.
He did.
He fucking did all this stuff. Now he's back, and the people he's mad at are Happy Corbin and Mosh Pit Jones. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. He might as well be mad at the fucking hot dog vendor out on the sidewalk that shortchanged him earlier in the afternoon. Who gives a shit? It's Corbin and Mosh Pit. So he has a sloppy, bad fight with the two of them and then dumped them and beat them up on the floor and hit them with the stairs. And here's this giant guy, and Drew McIntyre looks great, and he's had a following. And he can talk, and he's got the size, blah, blah, blah. Here he's picking up these giant metal stairs, bashing these two subhuman nitwits over the fucking head, and the fans didn't give a shit because it was Happy Corbin and Mosh Pit Jones. And they don't care. So they're watching attempted homicide with this giant metal object, and they don't give a shit. And then Owens comes out and meets Drew McIntyre on the floor, and they have a fight. And then Owens actually gets in the ring and did shit. And he didn't have to come in like Andre or like Hercules. He stomped Riddle's bare feet. I almost forgave him for everything right there. But he was smart enough to know, okay, I'm going to come out. I'm going to get some attention. I'm going to get in a fight with the big guy on the floor. I'm going to come in. They like this fucking stoner moron for some reason. I'm going to stomp his fucking feet. At least he attracted some attention. We're 3 hours and 40 minutes into this show, and there's 7 more guys to come into this fucking battle royal. And bless him, you know who the next one was. Oh, well, it worked in rehearsal. Poor Kofi Kingston. I mean, I know if you don't risk all, you don't win all. No risk, no reward, right? But goddamn, there was a ton of downside to doing this the first thing that he did in this match. Kofi Kingston comes in, and of course, they've had the ongoing thing that he finds innovative ways to stay into the Royal Rumble. And the announcers even said, boy, we can't wait to see this. What innovative ways that he finds to stay in the Royal Rumble. Of course, ignoring the fact that it's basically telling people it's phony when he finds innovative ways to stay in the Royal Rumble. But anyway, they come to expect it every year. So, of course, he's got to give them one. And in this one, he comes out, he throws a couple of punches just long enough for the announcers to say, what are we going to see here this year? and he's on the apron. He goes for a springboard on Owens, and as he gets to the top, Owens pushes him off the top rope backwards out into the arena. And the idea is he's supposed to turn and land in a splash on the barricade, staying on the barricade so that his feet don't touch the ground. And he was about 2 inches short, and he hit the barricade, but his feet went down because he wasn't quite far enough, and they showed the replay. One in that McAfee, I think it was going to be like, I don't know whether he hit or not. And they showed the replay, and yeah, he hit bigger than Christmas, both feet. And the referee had to come over and tell him. So, poof, he was out, and it's gone. And I think he even tweeted something like, well, the best laid plans or whatever. But that, I felt embarrassed for him. He was giving it a try, right? The next guy I was not embarrassed for, Bugs Bunny is back. Can't they at least change it up and get Daffy Duck once in a while? What about Porky Pig? So Bugs Bunny is not only back, but Sheamus and Kevin Owens both took bumps for him. Then he gave, quote unquote, it's ridiculous because the fucking guy giving it is actually along for the ride, but he gave Riddle a Canadian destroyer and then ducked and eliminated Sheamus. So you got a 6'6" plus pale Scotsman. Is he Scottish or Irish? Old Sheamus.
I'm not sure.
Whichever. He's 6'6". Owens is 260 these days, and Matt Riddle is a former UFC fighter. And in comes, I don't care how hard he works. I don't care how much he respects the business. I don't care how nice of a guy he is. This is not a part he's supposed to be playing. The rapper, the musician, is not supposed to be able to do all this shit, or that just tells you that everybody can fucking do it. And so I'm not saying that he's a horrible, disrespectful person. I'm saying that the idiots are the ones letting him do it. And these guys, I'm sure they're big fans, and they're just out there eagerly taking bumps for him. You've got a fucking musician beating up 300-pound men and UFC fighters. It'll get worse in a minute, but that's where we're at. And he dumped Dolph Ziggler out, too. I wanted to quit watching the whole Rumble match here, but I figured you'd get mad at me. And then here comes Shane O'Mac. Brian, what's worse than 300-pound men and UFC fighters bumping for a 175-pound rapper?
Bumping for 50-something Shane McMahon.
You got it. And I've said Shane's my favorite one of the McMahons, right? To just be around. He's a very nice guy, funny, he's got a sense of humor, intelligent, but what the fuck? Is he 53? I think he's 7 years younger than me. He's 53 or thereabouts. And he came in and he and Riddle both started like they're Riddle and like fucking who Ronda Rousey was doing it earlier. It's like they're actual fighters that have thrown punches, and now they're trying to throw the same kind of shitty looking little quick jabs that never connect anything and don't look like anybody's trying that Shane does. So he and Riddle are throwing the worst looking punches ever. Then Kevin Owens hit Shane full on with a super kick twice. He didn't bump on either one. First one stiffened him up, and the second one he staggered back. And then as Owens grabbed him, he reversed Owens' toss and dumped Owens over the top rope like a piece of shit after he'd stood up under two of his super kicks. And he's not just a 53-year-old man. Luthez was 53 once. Fucking Randy Couture is probably 53 now. Whoever, I mean, there's 53-year-olds can beat your fucking ass. But Shane McMahon, even if he might be one in real life because he's in great shape, has been presented as the son of a billionaire. How come he was so tough, but Pete Gas and Rodney were pushovers? So, and then Shane goes toe-to-toe with Drew McIntyre. So we've got... And by the way, did I mention that they're getting down to nut-cutting time? A 53-year-old son of a billionaire and a 175-pound musician are in the final fucking 8 so far here in the Royal Rumble. Then here comes Orton, number 29, hometown pop. He's from St. Louis. All the Ortons are. And he RKOs and dumps Big E and RKOs and dumps Otis. And he starts working with Riddle. And then here's Shane now. Shane's toe-to-toe with Matt Riddle again. And then let's go to the clip now before I reveal the last part of this. Brian, back on New Year's Day, and this won't take long, folks. If you've heard it before, this is only about 45 seconds. After the New Year's Day pay-per-view, when they had changed the plans, put the belt on Brock, then they reunited Brock with Heyman on television on Raw the following night. And I said, boy, we missed part of the story. And, you know, whatever Heyman was going, however we were going to see what side Heyman was going to be on. And, you know, boy, they really ought to shake the thing up. And I got an idea of how they could really shake this thing up with Brock and Reigns and blah, blah, blah. You want to play that clip now? It's only 45 seconds. This was from January, a clip we put up on the YouTube channel January the 9th. I think they really ought to shake this fucking thing up and shake people up and shake up their preconceived notions about what's going on. If they want to pour some fucking steam on this thing, if they do, let's say maybe, for example, maybe Brock loses to Lashley at the Royal Rumble. Now, I mean, now that we've already revealed that Heyman's around, Brock loses to Lashley at the Royal Rumble in the title match through some fucking swervy means, not just because he got beat, and then shows up in an open position or takes somebody out, goes in the Royal Rumble the very next match and kicks the shit out of some people and wins it, and he's still going to meet Reigns at WrestleMania.
I like that.
Well, you liked it then. Did you like it when you saw it, Brian? Because that's goddamn exactly what they did. Number 30, here comes Brock. And I mean, I knew they were listening, but for something as blatant as this, they ought to send me a check, but I'll let them go with it. But Brock wiped out everybody, as you should. If you're trying to make an impact in the Royal Rumble, remember Diesel one year. That was Pat Patterson knew how to fucking set these things up. He wipes out everybody. He dumps Orton to Big Booze because he's the hometown hero. He gives F5 to the Bugs, the bunny, and dumps him. He grabs and German suplexes Shane. And then Riddle comes at him and is going to jump. I think that Riddle was going to be like he was going to dive on him and Brock was going to catch him over his shoulders in an F5 position and spin him out. But if you go back and look, Riddle jumps and Brock, he wasn't in exactly the right place, but he caught Riddle awkwardly in midair, just like he was catching a goddamn leaf falling off the tree. There was no strain whatsoever, and just was under his legs and just picked him up and just chucked him over the top and didn't give a fuck how he landed, it looked like. Didn't care. And there's been tongue wagging between Brock Lesnar and Matt Riddle, hadn't there?
I think so, a while back on social media, and I could be wrong, but didn't Brock, either Brock or someone close to Brock said, like, he'll never work with Riddle because of his social media behavior?
No, he told Riddle.
Oh, is that
That's
what it
the way
was?
I heard it. I heard because Riddle was trying to shoot his own angles and running his dick licker about who could whip who and this and that. He was disrespectful in some kind of way because he's a goof. And Brock, apparently, when Brock came back or the next time he was around or whatever, I heard that in the back, Riddle went up to him and Brock said, "Hey, that's okay, brother, because we're never going to work with each other." and that interaction right there is probably all you're going to get to see. But he just had Riddle and he just launched him. His feet were pointed downwards. It wasn't like he was completely trying to kill him. His feet were under him, but he just pushed him off and said gravity can take care of the rest. And then Brock tried to clothesline Shane McMahon over the top rope. But by this point, Shane was blown slap dab up. His face was red and you could see, because even if Shane was an experienced worker, you know what he was doing. He's 53 years old and he doesn't do it often, but also all of that motion that he's in, you can tell Shane is not breathing. He's not conserving his energy. He's tense. He's wired up. He's throwing it. He's tight. That's what blows you up. That's what, Lawler never fucking went in a gym a day in his life. When he was in his mid-40s, he could go a half an hour at a pretty good pace and chewing gum the whole time because he was as relaxed in the ring as anybody that's ever stepped foot in it. And that's what the reason why non-wrestlers, part-time wrestlers, people who have trained to wrestle from another line of work for a special match or whatever and don't do it regularly, you're tense, you're in front of all those people, you're concentrating on what you're doing, you're not breathing, and 3 minutes later your tongue's hanging out like a long red necktie, and the first 3 rows are passing out from oxygen deprivation because you've sucked all the wind out of the room. So anyway, after Shane was eliminated, I'm surprised it didn't take the SWAT team. Here comes Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre. They're facing off. Boy, let's see what's going to. A couple of years ago, we know what happened. What about now? Drew missed a kick. Brock Fireman's carried him and dumped him over the top rope. Thanks for coming. That was it.
That was surprising.
Again, we didn't have to. I know that Drew McIntyre is not in this issue with Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns. That doesn't mean that he just had to, okay, boom, we're done. So basically, let me go back and look at my notes here. Dumped him, dumped Riddle, dumped Shane. 2 of the last 3 eliminations were Shane McMahon and Bugs Bunny. No, 2 of the last 4. I'm sorry, right? Shane, Bugs. Well, regardless, Shane McMahon and Bugs Bunny were that deep in the Royal Rumble. And then when we got down to the 2 wrestlers, both former world champions, one formerly Drew McIntyre from last year or whatever, one from an hour beforehand, 2 graduates of major universities, 1 move, duck, dump. 4 fucking hours to get to that point. And Brock points to the WrestleMania sign and they blew off the pyro again. Apparently they set the fucking thing on fire again because I got an email or a tweet, one or the other. I read it from somebody specifically to me saying they were leaving the fucking building and the thing was melting again.
All right, I guess we're done with the Royal Rumble review. Interesting metaphor. The WrestleMania sign burning as people are leaving the arena.
And hey, where were these people? Because when they did that at TNA at the pay-per-view that time and set the fucking roof on fire or whatever, the people started chanting, the roof is on fire. The fans didn't pick up on it here. So yeah, the WrestleMania was in flames around their their ears as this program ended, folks. Once again, the mighty has fallen.
I understand Cody said that they stole the idea from him, being lit on fire.
You know what they should have done? They should have hoisted fucking Cody up like the WrestleMania sign in AEW. They should hoist him up, and whoever wins gets to set Cody on fire.
And they could all just stand there and point to the flaming Cody.
Yes, that would draw. That would be the highest secondary ticket price in wrestling to get into for that one.
It's an interesting idea. I don't know if it would draw, but I know that someone would draw it for you. In fact, someone would paint it for you if you wanted to see that image on your wall.
As a matter of fact, that's the present that I didn't know that I needed for this Valentine's Day, is somebody to get me a world-class painting of Cody Rhodes hung over the arena on fire. But I'll tell you, if folks, no matter whether you want a member of your family set on fire or not, even in a picture, not for real, although just keep a can of gas and a box of matches around just in case.
No, in case.
Well, just in case you ever need to light a match or fill your gas up with car, or fill your car up with gas. That's why you should have those things around. But folks, the fine friends that we have at Paint Your Life can turn your new memories into lasting art that will last forever. Because after all, what do you call a guy with no arms and no legs hanging on the wall? Art. That's what you call him, and that's what Paint Your Life produces. We have mentioned many times at paintyourlife.com, it's a great idea for a gift for birthdays, anniversary, wedding, etc., because you can have any photograph or combination of photographs turned into a very beautiful, professional, hand-painted portrait by a team of world-class artists. Actually, one of a member of a team of world-class. A bunch of people don't work on this. They have a bunch of artists, but they'll just assign one to your painting. You don't have to worry about somebody starting something and somebody else finishing it. For example, you don't want a Picasso slapped onto the side of a Van Gogh or a Rembrandt. Nevertheless, you can get this portrait in as little as 2 weeks. The reason is because they only have one guy doing it. They're not putting the whole team on it.
There's more than one guy doing it.
Well, there's more than one, but not more than one guy's going to do each portrait. They have a team of world-class artists. And if you want a portrait, they'll give you one of their team. But you'll get the portrait. And you can choose from a team of world-class artists. You don't have to take just any old fucking, amateur yacht broker from a fucking, local dealership or whatever. You can get whoever you pick. Anyway, you can send any picture. Yourself, your children, your family, a special place, a loved one who isn't around anymore, a cherished pet, someone on the most wanted list in your town. Someone that you need to put this picture up next to your front door and tell everybody in the house, if this motherfucker shows up, don't let him in. Whoever you want it to be. It doesn't matter, because they will make the portrait, and it'll be a perfect birthday, anniversary, or wedding gift that can be cherished forever. As a matter of fact, I have feedback, Brian, from some of the Cult of Cornette members. This is from LJ. Actually, you don't have to call him LJ. Well, you could call him Ray, and you could call him Jay. However, LJ says he's a longtime listener, had the opportunity of seeing me live many times, the first being at the Clash of Champions back in Troy, New York.
Oh, wow.
Holy mackerel, that was quite a while back.
Great night.
But LJ says, over the Christmas holiday, I received a painting from my wife, Andrea, that she had made by the fine people at Paint Your Life. The painting is a picture of our son, Jonathan, who was born in February of 2021, and my dad, who passed away when I was 14. It was hands down one of the best presents I've ever received. And he enclosed an attachment with some pictures. He had the picture of his father from years ago, had the picture of his son from last year, and then a picture of the painting, and they're combined where his son's sitting on his father's lap. They never coexisted in the world at the same time. And it looks just like both of them. So he says it was hands down one of the best birthday presents, or one of the best presents he's ever received. And he also wants to wish both his wife and son an early birthday, as their birthdays are February 10th and 12th. So Jonathan and wife Andrea, happy birthday from LJ. But LJ says, I want to thank you so much for your sponsors and thank you for the shows that you guys provide. So there you go, folks. If you want to do what LJ did, then all you've got to do is go to paintyourlife.com and check everything out. If you don't love the final painting, your money will be refunded. There is absolutely no risk. There is a risk if you hit your finger with a hammer while you're hanging the painting up, you could break your fucking finger, but that's not Paint Your Life's problem. But they'll give you the money back if you don't like the painting, guaranteed. And right now, as a limited time offer, you can get 20% off your painting, 20% and free shipping if you text the word drive to 64,000. That's drive, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. Drive, that's what I do to Brian when I drive him crazy, to 64,000, 20% off and free shipping at paintyourlife.com. Paint Your Life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms.
That's right, Jim. And we talked before about WrestleMania signs being on fire and Cody Rhodes being on fire. Let's stay on the topic of wrestlers on fire. Several people have sent in a question about a recent interview Randy Orton did on the Ringer Wrestling Show about his Bray Wyatt feud. Did you see any of these?
I didn't know that the Ringer was a thing. I have not seen. I didn't know they let the guys talk now. I guess Randy does what he wants.
Well, here's a quote from Randy Orton, apparently. Rolling with the punches is something that I realized more recently than not. If I just accept that I'm out of control of some of these situations, and I'm talking about the business right now, if I just take what they give me and do the best of my ability. I was doing Fiend stuff. None of this makes any sense. I was doing Fiend stuff a year ago. That was hard. Some of that was rough. They put me in the burn mask one week, and the next week I'm out of it, and my skin healed. It's tough. Then you go to who you would imagine you go to when you have a gripe, and go, hey, I can't do this. Aren't they gonna, and he does a Vince impression, it says here, just do it. It's gonna work. Okay, roll with the punches. You go out there and you do your best job. Even though I'm lighting a dead guy on fire and he's the babyface, I had a very hard time trying to make that real, but I feel like I did a good enough job to where even though it was a little cringeworthy for some people, because I really tried to believe I was going through this, I think it helped people buy into it a little bit more while we were suspending that reality and trying to make them believe like they would if they were watching the most recent Halloween movie. They want to believe and be entertained. So, the more I can accept that and make it real and make it something that I'm feeling and not just words that some 22-year-old writer wrote on paper for me, if I believe it and make it mine, I can get them to believe. That's what kind of changed with my promos. So, Jim, what are your thoughts on a lot here? Randy Orton's thoughts on the Fiend feud, and it started with, here are my frustrations, and by the end of it, it was just Stockholm Syndrome. Whatever they say, I'm okay.
Well, no.
Roll with the punches.
At the end, whatever some 22-year-old writer writes down for me, he's not Stockholming. He's still trying to get the fucking point across, but he's trying to be diplomatic as possible since they pay him 7 figures a year. I mean, I feel bad for him because he knows he knows what sucks and he knows why it sucks. And that's what he's saying. I can't beat myself up about it anymore. I can't do anything about it. The stuff that I can't control for that much money. And he's closer to the end of his career than he is the beginning. He's just, and if they don't give a fuck about their own company, why should he? All those things that I always used to say to myself and still couldn't talk myself into not saying, you dumb motherfuckers, what are you fucking doing? But Randy knows. He grew up in the wrestling business, around the wrestling business, being involved with his father and grandfather who spent their lives in the wrestling business. He went to OVW, was there for a couple of years, which was not only the last place that taught the traditional wrestling values, but was also more detailed about those traditional wrestling values than probably any other training program even of that time. So he knows all the things that's wrong. He knows it's gaga and horse shit. He knows that it makes no sense. He knows that the baby face was the dead body that was being burned alive because he's a creature from a demon-possessed whatever the fuck, right? And he knows that his skin didn't regenerate under the burn mask in 12 days or whatever. But you'll do what I did. You'll either give yourself lifelong acid reflux or potentially have to hire an attorney or come to the point where you just scream at everybody that you hope they all fucking drop over and burst into flames and go home if you can't just not let it bother you. And I guess he's figured, what the fuck? For the money I get for what I've got to do and how much longer I've got left to do it, he's not going to save the wrestling business. Why fucking try? But he knows exactly what's wrong and what's right, what to do and what not to do. That's why he's one of the smartest workers in the ring over the last 10, 20 years, whatever.
Are you surprised by what he's saying Vince's reaction to him would be, considering who he is and how long he's been there?
No. Maybe just a little bit more abrupt. You know, I would think it, and maybe honestly, it probably was that Vince first tried to talk to him and finally said, "Oh, just do it, pal. It'll be fine. It's good shit." But no, I mean, they remember when I don't know who was behind the idea of we're going to pour a can of gasoline over this guy and supposedly set him on fire in the middle of the fucking ring. I don't know whether that was Vince or that was one of the writers and he went with it, whatever the fuck. But when Vince has something he wants to do, and he really wants to do it, and he doesn't want to be talked out of it, Steve Austin walked out and went home one time. And, a lot of guys have had to finally say either they do it or fuck you, I'm leaving. And they did. So if Randy wasn't sufficiently offended by the stuff to say, fuck it, I'm leaving, then he's going to have to do it. So, what the fuck?
Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Mark Hole with Odessa Steps Magazine.
And also a man who sent me a fine Wendy's gift card for Christmas and a card, and I haven't got out to use it yet, but I'm going to.
We are coming up on the anniversary of the Midnight Express winning the NWA World Tag Team titles from the Rock and Roll Express on the Superstars on the Superstation show.
February 2nd, baby.
1986. Since the topic hasn't been discussed on the show recently, apart maybe from David Crockett's commentary, I was wondering if we could, he left out a word or two here, if we could, I guess, show some history or talk about some history on this monumental event for Jim Dennis and Bobby. Here are the questions. When did the Midnight Express learn from Dusty they were winning the belts? Presumably, Jim knew they would win them eventually once arriving in Jim Crockett Promotions. But when did you know? Before the Rock and Roll Express won them back at Starrcade? A week or two before? Question 2, did Jim have any input on the finish, or was it all Dusty? And question 3, just how groggy was Bobby really during the locker room interview when he was selling the racket shop?
There's a picture that they took that whoever the photographer was, I don't think it was Lynn McAllister, because that was before he started. It may have been, God, what was his name? Woody Smith from Charlotte or whatever, but a picture is circulated. Obviously, Bobby had been whacked with the racket in the finish, and he was supposed to be pretty much out of it. And so we come back in the locker room after the match and for the post-match interview. We're the new champions, right? And we sit Bobby in a chair, and he's selling like he's still halfway knocked out and goofy. And so the picture that went everywhere is Dennis standing there holding the belts and me pointing to the camera and saying whatever the fuck I was saying, and Bobby sitting there looked like he nodded off. With his head's over to the side in the chair. No, we didn't know. That was February 2nd, 1986. We didn't know the week after Starrcade, which was Thanksgiving of the previous year, that we were going to win them. We knew when we went into Jim Crockett Promotions, because the same night or the same week that that we started, and we've talked about this at the Atlanta end, when there was still the Atlanta office open and the Charlotte office, the Rock and Roll Express beat the Russians for the World Tag Team title on Crockett's syndicated television in the Carolinas. And the deal was the Rock and Roll were going to be based out of the Carolinas and the Midnight in Georgia to keep us apart for 6 months. That's what Dusty had said. So it would not only give us time to get over, but the Rock and Roll were already over from beating the Russians. That was instantly smashed them over the first night, but then they can have the rematches and get all the money out of that. And, you know, people know more about the Rock and Roll. So we're going to keep that apart for 6 months. So they're the champions. So, you know, we knew that that was going to happen. Then when they dropped them and did the switch with, oh, God damn it. It was Ole and Arn, right?
I thought it was the Russians, actually.
Oh, no, it was the Russians, and they won them back because then they had next year. That's right.
Ole and Arn wrestled them in Starrcade 86.
Yes. But the point is they dropped them back to the Russians so that they could get the big pop by winning them back at Starrcade. But we had not even started wrestling the Rock and Roll in any matches until around about the time of Starrcade. And that's when Dusty started booking the Midnight in the first, some of the first Carolinas Crockett towns that we'd go into. And we'd go in and either have a non-title match with them, or it might be a title match and we'd get disqualified or whatever. Just give the people a little taste. Because I remember the first time we went to Richmond, Virginia, in, I believe it was somewhere in late November of 1985, and wrestled a Rock and Roll Express for the tag team title. The house was $13,000. Richmond was on its ass. We went back after we'd shot the angle on television, after the Rock and Roll Midnight program had started in late January, 2 months later, and we did $88,000. That was the all-time Richmond record for that time. And the next month, we would beat it again and do over 100. But so the point is, we were kept apart for a while. Then they put us together in some matches in a few of the towns just for the people to get a little taste. And then I would say, I can't remember the specific place and date, since we weren't in the locker room with Dusty every single night, because a lot of times the babyface locker rooms were separate. It was probably either at Atlanta TV or at the syndicated television that we did a week or two before the Omni show. That would have been when Dusty would have told us, because we had to know, because what was happening was the match was in the Omni on February 2nd, but the entire Omni show was being videotaped, and it was going to air the following Friday night on TBS as the first live primetime wrestling special ever on TBS, Superstars on the Superstation. And we'd started doing promos for it and the interviews for it. It's going to be Superstars on a Superstation, baby. So since we were one of the feature matches, Dusty did tell us ahead of time, here's where we're going to pull the trigger, baby. Here's where we're going to do it. You guys win the titles. Okay, so, I mean, you know, we were expecting, because we never thought that we were going to have an angle with the Rock and Roll Express not involving the World Tag Team title, because Dusty had planned for that to be his top tag team program. And we never planned for it to be a program with the Rock and Roll Express where we would never actually win the belts from them, because that would have been insane to have a whole program and the heels never win the belts. That was what we spent a career doing with them. We beat them for the belts, hold them long enough till the people didn't think they could ever get them back, and then put the belts back on them. That's, you know, the money for the baby faces, especially in Southern wrestling, was the chase, was achieving the goal. And then you didn't want them to get too complacent, because if the baby faces were champions for too long, you had no heat. But it was, you know, it was the week or two before, whatever. And in talking about, you know, it was going to be one of the featured matches on the Superstars on Superstation special. And the finish he asked about was completely Dusty. I was in no way to the point yet where Dusty was asking my opinion on any of the finishes. We'd been there for 7 months at that point. I was happy to be there, and we did whatever Dusty said to do. And on that one, I wish I'd have brought my whacking racket rather than the sparkly racket that would have made a noise. But since I didn't use it, Dennis did anyway. And Dennis didn't like the whack. He liked to hit a guy straight over the back of the head. And he was good enough with it, you could work it anyway. And that was the day we've mentioned. I don't know why they took this chance that they booked this way, but besides money, on February 2nd, there were 2 afternoon shows that Jim Crockett was running. One was in Charlotte at the Coliseum with the Midnight versus the Rock and Roll in the main event for the World Tag Team title right after the angle we had done where we dropped Ricky Morton's throat on top. They picked him up and dropped him, and I had the racket, and he dropped throat first on the racket and spit up blood, and, you know, we threatened his career may be over. That was the first big angle. And so they put us in the main event in Charlotte, and the second afternoon show was in Hamilton, Ontario, because it was the first big Mosca Mania show that Angelo Mosca was running to oppose the Tunnies in Toronto that had gone with the WWF. And that was where Flair and Dusty and the Road Warriors were. And that show did 10,000 people and $100,000 or whatever the fuck it was. And the show that we had in Charlotte sold out. It was the first legitimate, clean sellout for wrestling in the Charlotte Coliseum since Flair and Blackjack Mulligan in 1978. And we did it without Flair, Dusty, and Road Warriors on the card. So Crockett had grossed over $200,000 and sold 23,000 tickets that afternoon between those 2 shows, because we had 12,000 in Charlotte, they had 10,000 in Hamilton. And then they took, Crockett got this was before Crockett had even bought his jet. I'm pretty sure they got a chartered jet to bring them back from Hamilton to Atlanta. And me and Bobby and Dennis and a couple of the other people that were on the Charlotte afternoon card, it wasn't a big card, that were on the Omni show also, we had to finish at 4:00, jump in the car, and drive 240 miles to Atlanta. And the 8:00 bell time, we got to Atlanta, and in the locker room, the show was already going on. And so we, real quick, boned up on what finish we were doing in that particular match. And by then, it was time to go out and do it. So we had 2 different matches with the Rock and Roll Express that day in front of a total of almost 20,000 people, because the Omni House was 7,000 fans, paid $60,000, even though they knew they were going to see it on TV the following Friday. And back then, if you knew you were going to see something on television, you didn't buy a ticket to see it live. TV was the most poorly attended wrestling show of all, because you knew you could see it on TV. And Crockett, on 3 shows in a 12-hour period, sold 30,000 tickets and grossed $270,000. And we all barely made the goddamn TBS primetime network special, because the biggest stars were in fucking Canada until 4:30. And we were driving down I-85 after selling that goddamn sumbitch out, as Ricky Morton would say, for the first time in 8 years. What a day!
What a day, and let's continue with this day and get some more questions here, Jim. This next one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
I knew it. You know, he's even got a line of T-shirts out now. I'm a Charlie in Starkville guy.
He sent me a few of these. I now have T-shirts from 2 different listeners. I have the original John Fell from Baltimore T-shirt, or John Fell in Baltimore, and now the Charlie from Starkville shirt.
I'm telling you, we make celebrities out of our audience. That's why it's so big. Everybody wants to be a star.
Here's Charlie's question. Speaking of making people stars, Chris Jericho recently took credit for making new stars in AEW. Jericho said, here's a quote, "You look at my first few programs. Match 3 in AEW was Darby Allin. Jungle Boy was right around that time. Then Jon Moxley, who had to be rehabbed when he first came from WWE."
Is that a proper choice of words?
Wow, it didn't even hit me, but that is apparently what he said here. The Jon Moxley who had to be rehabbed when he first came from WWE. Because
and then he had to be rehabbed again after he'd spent some time in AEW.
Because Mox wasn't Mox when he first showed up. He was still Dean Ambrose, the goofy guy who wasn't funny doing all the stupid shit they made him do.
Wait a minute. Do you remember Moxley trying to do anything funny?
From the moment Moxley...
He's a goofy guy, I'll agree with that. But do you remember him trying to be funny?
As Dean Ambrose in WWE, sure.
No, I mean in AEW.
No, he's been a completely different guy and accepted by their fans from the beginning. I don't think he needed to be rehabbed at all. Am I wrong?
No, that's what I'm saying. He's saying, oh, remember I worked with this guy that's over now, and I worked with that guy that's over now, and I really had to help him out. They loved his ass, Moxley, when he first got there. If anybody has, we'll go ahead and finish the statement, but if anybody has survived working with Jericho, it's certainly not been accrued to their benefit.
That was really the end of the statement. Just Charlie wanted to know, what are your thoughts on Jericho taking credit for making new stars in AEW?
Oh, God. Again, Darby Allin they liked from the start because he was an indie darling, but if anybody made him a star, it was being teamed with Sting, and it was the incredible match that he had with MJF. Those two things have been responsible for him being probably more popular now, one of the few there in that company that's more over now than they were when they started. As far as Moxley, we just said, I don't know where he's getting that, because Moxley came out for bad or good. He came out doing the "I'm a badass that eats flesh and drinks blood" thing and the shoulder roll and all that stuff from the start. And who else did? Oh, Jungle Boy. Boy, he really made a star out of Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy's still in a tag team with a schlub goof as his partner and has bad trampoline matches with the Harley Boys clique and has not broken out in any way on his own, despite several matches with guys who were trying to do that for him, because his booking has been inconsistent, mostly confined to the tag team. And we've come to find out now that he has little, if any, fucking personality. He sits around like he's fucking waiting for his goddamn clothes to dry at a laundromat, and he shies away from doing promos. So I don't know if I would have bragged about those three names. Maybe he did something for Pockets. He brought attention to Pockets. Not in a good way, but he brought attention to him.
And everyone universally accepts the MJF feud as being what it was, which was a complete waste of time and a waste of a year of this young guy's career.
No, well, okay, I thought you were going to say a waste of time. No, it wasn't a waste of time for Jericho. He got all the possible rub and oomph he could off MJF being hot and everybody being interested in him, and made him his subservient little lackey and then the guy that he whooped up on.
All right, well, that's Chris Jericho's comments on making new stars in AEW, and, another place where...
You can't make new stars just in the ring also. They have to be booked that way. If you go in and have the greatest match since the Christians ate the lions in ancient Rome, and the guy that you have it with the next week ain't on television, nowhere to be found, and then he's getting beat by the mascot 2 weeks later on YouTube, you didn't make a star anyway. But go ahead, Brian, with where you were going with that.
Well, where I was going was just to say you can make stars on TV, but it's harder to make stars that you actually want to listen to. But when you find those stars, those musicians, those artists, you need the right way to listen to them covertly at times, but you need great earbuds.
I was just going to let you twist in the wind until you have said anything approaching the product, and then I was going to take it from there. Folks, if you'd like to listen to, I don't know, Brian Last have a series of small strokes right in your ears, or whether you'd like to listen to our programs or some soothing music, or possibly if you'd like to listen to your own Windjammer tapes. As we all know, Windjammers are the agonizing screams of a trapped turd. Whatever you'd like to listen to, you can listen to them on the Raycon wireless earbuds, and nobody's even going to know. They don't have these sticks and stems and antennae. What's the plural of antennae? Antennae? You don't have all that stuff sticking out of them. They're wireless, and they're earbuds. They're not ear posts. They don't stick out like a fence post. The everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. That's because they're doing a lot of work on these things these days. They've revamped them, new paint job, the whole 9 yards. There's the awareness mode for when you need to listen to your surroundings, because they were getting some feedback from their customers that many of the customers were dying from being run over by oncoming trains that they did not notice because they were too busy listening to their latest Taylor Swift tune. So now with the awareness mode, you know before the train gets there when it's time to leave the tracks. Also, you can take these things wherever you go. They're very small. Brian, I'll have you know they're small enough to actually fit comfortably in a human adult's ear. That's not very big at all.
Of course,
Hotchkiss has a problem because his ears are different sizes. The one on the left is normal size. The one on the right has a hole in it about as big as my fist. But also, they're comfortable because they have the optimized gel tips for the perfect in-ear fit, and they will not budge. Trust me on this. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, they will not fall out of your ears. You can be suplexed, drop-kicked, backdropped, Germaned, and pile-driven, and these things won't fall out of your ear, well, at least until the blood starts flowing a little bit too forcefully, and then sometimes the blood flow will wash one or both of the Raycon earbuds out of your ear. But otherwise than that, you're fine, so you can wrestle with these things in your head. They offer 8 hours of playtime, a 32-hour battery life, and they are priced at just half the price of other premium audio brands that shall remain nameless because they should be ashamed of themselves. Raycon's everyday earbuds have over 48,000 five-star reviews. And one asshole who got one stuck one day, he just won't come up off those 5 stars. But anyway, right now, my listeners, and Brian's too, can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/JCE. That's BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/JCE to save 15% off everything on the site. Folks, you want to listen to music? You want to listen to the podcast? You don't want to listen to your nagging wife or your simpering children? Whatever the case may be, block out reality now. Listen to what you want to listen to. Only things that you agree with on Raycons. Right, Brian?
Well, you can listen to anything you want, so I guess only things you would agree with if that's what you want, yes.
That's what I said.
Well, let's get a few more questions before we wrap things up. And this next one, Jim, we have a few that were sent in about TNA recently. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Justin. What are your thoughts on the Steiner math promo? If you have not seen it, can you please play it? Well, we've seen it.
I was there when he did it.
What do you remember about it? Was it an instant classic as soon as it happened?
Well, yes, because it was Scotty doing a promo. There was nothing. That was not written, obviously. I mean, you couldn't write it. And there was just some line that had been suggested to Scott with the percentages in it or something that he fixated on. I can't remember exactly where the genesis of it came up, but as they were rolling, he just did that promo off the top of his head. It didn't make any sense because a lot of his promos didn't. But as we've mentioned, the guys that had personality, could do promos that if you wrote down and examined the words didn't make a lick of sense, but it sounded great because of the way they did it. And it was a tickle and it was funny. But then there was a couple of times everybody made such a big deal out of it, he tried to revisit it and try to do it again, but on purpose this time instead of just doing it. And you could never do it on purpose again. And then people have done takeoffs on it and made fun of it and whatever, and doing, homages or whatever. But it's just one of those things that the reason why it got over was because it wasn't written, it wasn't planned. It was a guy just saying something off the top of his head, and it was funny.
Is Scott Steiner in on the joke?
Yes. Scott graduated college. He has a degree from a major university. He's not an imbecile. He's not goddamn nuclear physicist or potentially the most cunning linguist in the world, but he knew that it was a bunch of gaga, and he knew that it was funny, and he knew why people were laughing at it, but he was doing a fucking promo. So he knows that now some of the words that he uses in place of potentially more popular and correct words in specific places, sometimes that's an accident and sometimes it's not. But he's in on it enough to know afterwards, especially if it gets a pop, that he said a word that probably didn't fit there, but it fit because it was coming from Scott Steiner. No, he's not oblivious to the reason why people were entertained by some of those promos. No, he's in on it.
Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Rachel in Pennsylvania. I was wondering if Jim had any memories or anecdotes relating to Samoa Joe's fake face tattoo in TNA. I think I already know whose idea it was to do that, but I would love to hear what Jim's reaction was. I remember thinking, Samoa Joe is the biggest badass on TV. Why does he have that stupid fake tattoo now?
That's what everybody thought. And then when it would start washing off or wiping off in the middle of the match, no, it was shit stain. Because he's a complete blithering idiot, and he grew up on, okay, if he's Samoan, that means that he eats raw fish and wrestles barefoot and can't speak English like Afa and Sika. That's the first thought he had. But he knew Samoa Joe could speak English because he'd talked to him a number of times. But the more, I think actually, I'm gonna say this, I think it's correct. Some of the worst stuff they did to Joe was after Jeff Jarrett and Dixie got sideways, and Dixie told Jeff to go home, and he wasn't there to fucking rein shit stain in. But remember it wasn't just the face tattoo that somehow, like in shit stain's warped adolescent thinking, he always did the stuff with the women being bitches and hoes in the WWE during the Attitude Era because that was his arrested sexual development. He had only ever had, I'm talking about Vince Russo now, in case anybody's worried about who shit stain is. I want to make sure everybody puts the blame where it belongs. He'd only ever had sex with his wife, who was his teenage sweetheart, and he didn't understand the whole thing about, guys are normally supposed to go around and do these things, so his sexual development was stunted, his growth, and he watched Jerry Springer to get his ideas of how women interacted with each other and how he should interact with women, and that's how he wrote the women in the Attitude Era. And another part of his arrested emotional development was, if you've got a bunch of tattoos, then you're a badass. That's why if you've noticed shit stain after he's been out of the wrestling business, he apparently had a midlife crisis. Now he's got tattoos up and down his fucking arms and all over his fishy, pale, white, undefined body. Because he wants to look like a supposed badass. He actually looks like he's a fucking drunken bum in Central Park that went to sleep on a bench with a goddamn newspaper open to the Sunday funnies, and his pale, fishy, white skin impersonated Silly Putty and picked up all the fucking visuals. And so he wanted Samoa Joe to have a tattoo on his face like a Samoan beast. Remember the fire dancers on Samoa Joe's entrance? Some of those people were actually relatives of Samoa Joe's. He's not denying that he's Samoan, hence the name. And his real name I can't pronounce is Samoan. But he also, as he had mentioned to me at the time when we're sitting back there while the Samoan fire dancers are doing their practicing, Joe asked me, he's like, he's aware that I'm from California and graduated college, right? And listen, Samoa Joe is conversant. He's in English like a CPA, but he's a tribal savage fire dancers and facial tattoos. Then remember when they beat him up and threw him in a trunk and kidnapped him? Some of the heels? And he was gone for a while and he found his way back somehow. Shitstain, in trying to get a lot of guys over that he didn't understand and that he couldn't fathom how you can present them as real human beings, everything has to be to the lowest common denominator, appeal to the trashiest people in the trailer park, or be the most awful example of Jerry Springer crash TV that you possibly can. He couldn't take a guy that was 300 pounds, moved like a cruiserweight, was fucking articulate and educated, and also a great worker who could come off as a badass with great promos. He had to fucking send him to Gilligan's Island and make him a fucking kidnap victim. And that basically buried everything that Samoa Joe had going for him. When he and Angle had done that little program when Angle first came in, and they did the biggest buy rate in the history of TNA wrestling, past, present, or future. That's the most. I think they did 60,000 buys, or maybe a few more, for that first match between Joe and Angle. That's the best pay-per-view they ever did, with Hulk Hogan, with Randy Savage, with whoever the fuck they ever had. And of course, Shitstain had little or nothing to do with it. It was all Dutch, just doing packages on these guys and letting them do promos and not do phony angles and see what's going to happen when the two badasses get in the ring. So then he never understood that. He couldn't understand, Shitstain, how to get guys over as real people with a legitimate conflict between them. It had to be the gaga 70s and 80s WWF bullshit. That's how he saw people. That's the whole thing with the women, because he, I can paraphrase that, like Bill Watts said, if you ever caught Vince Russo in a men's locker room, he'd be whistling Stranger in Paradise. If you ever caught Vince Russo in the middle of a goddamn sexual going on with women, he'd be whistling Stranger in Paradise. That's why he reduced them all to fucking hoes and skanks, and they like to fucking stab each other in the back. Because he never interacted with any. He didn't know how. Same thing with Samoans.
All right, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Tom B. in Charleston, West Virginia. Jim,
right down the road from Hurricane. Had a bunch of West Virginians get mad at me for calling it Hurricane. It's Hurricane over there.
Jim, do you remember the Bunkhouse Stampede match in Charleston, West Virginia in early 1988? Bobby had his pants pulled down, and everyone in the ring was trying so hard not to laugh, including yourself. Any remembrance of the incident?
Well, there was a couple of those. There was one in Freedom Hall in Johnson City. I've got a picture of this. It was a Smoky Mountain street fight, and it was Bobby Eaton, Stan Lane, and Tom Pritchard versus Robert Fuller, Jimmy Golden, and Dutch Mantell versus, I believe, the Rock and Roll Express and Arn Anderson. It was the three-team program we had going on. But the point is, everybody's dressed in their street fight clothes, and they tried to strip Bobby all the way down. And they did the same that night in Charleston. I can't remember who all was in on it. There was probably a Steiner involved. But they got Bobby, they ripped his shirt off, and they, when you're in sweatpants and knee pads and a T-shirt with elbow pads and your fist taped and, like you're in a street fight or whatever. Bobby didn't have a cowboy gimmick, so he wasn't going to wear blue jeans and cowboy boots. But they got his T-shirt ripped off, and then they got the pants, I think sweatpants or whatever, and they were going for the under tights. And he was trying desperately not to let them do that, and that's part of the rib. You don't want to do it to somebody that's going to let you. And it's the picture that I have is of him on the floor is from Johnson City running around the ring with. I think he's still got one leg in his sweatpants, but he's holding on to his underwear, and somebody behind him has the underwear giving him a big wedgie, and he's running, and he's got this look on his face like, oh, shit, and everybody's pointing to blah, blah, blah. That was one of the rib, and they did it to Bobby because it would be funnier doing it to Bobby because Bobby's so nice, and Bobby will laugh, and everybody will laugh at Bobby, and Bobby will laugh about himself. Oh, you guys, come on, holy shit, don't do that, no. And everybody loved Bobby so much so that they wanted to strip him naked in front of 5,000 people.
All right.
It's a show of love.
Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru.
But now I will say that during those same, it was the next year's Bunkhouse Stampedes that the Zambui Express would have been in, right?
Not the Zambui Express, the Commandos.
The Commandos. I keep saying they were Zambuis in Mid-South, the Commandos. Ray Candy and
Ray Boone.
And Grizzly Boone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Steiners in the Bunkhouse Stampedes in '89, that's when the Steiners used to take Ray Candy down and just immobilize the biggest guy in the match. He's 400 pounds. But he was older than the Steiners, and he wasn't a shooter. They'd take him down and just immobilize him and stick his own finger up his own ass and all that other shit. But, you got to have fun in there. Those fucking battle royals are boring and miserable. You had to make your own fun.
That doesn't sound like too much fun. In fact, if I was Ray Candy and I was, in fact, alive, I'd probably be looking for some good legal representation.
Well, in that case, if you do indeed need legal representation because you've been sodomized with your own finger in a bunkhouse battle royal, or if Ray Candy does come back to life, I know who you should call.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
I was just thinking that if we'd have done that transition a little bit differently, we could have said, ladies and gentlemen, if you or your family have been traumatized by the sight of a naked pro wrestler in front of you in a huge sports arena, then you know who to call. We could have done it that way. But then, as Bobby mentioned a number of times, he would get hot afterwards when we'd be back in the locker room. He'd say, guys, come on. Don't do that to me. I only brought my spot show dick with me. If I'd have known you were going to do that, I'd have brought my house show dick. I don't want people seeing this one. Anyway, here's a real private dick for you. He'll get to the bottom of things. That's what they used to call the private detectives, the private dicks. Now that has a little bit different connotation. But you can hire this man and not go up on morals charges for it. Folks, Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. He will never try to strip your clothes off in the middle of a sports arena in front of 5,000 people. He will not try to make you use any part of your own body to penetrate any other part of your own body. And he will never, under any circumstances, let you defend yourself in a court of law, because he is the consigliere of the cult of Cornette, and he is also one of the most successful and most prominent personal injury attorneys in the state of West Virginia. But his reach, the tentacles of his reach far beyond the state lines of West Virginia and all across the country. He is filing suits now in at least half a dozen states on behalf of the young babies born addicted to opioids because of the misrepresentation by the big pharmaceutical companies. Those are being filed right now. He's looking for more of the folks that are taking care of some of these children, the grandparents, the foster parents, adoptive parents, things like that it may be harder to track down the kids' medical history. He wants you to be involved because he's going to get a lot of people paid from these big drug companies for taking advantage of the little ones. And also, well, what can we say, folks? He's getting into the wrestling representation racket because he's doing some legal work for some folks in our particular profession, pro wrestling, and he's expanding sports agency. He's expanding and a lemonade stand down in Pineville, West Virginia. That thing is just booming. Everything Stephen P. New touches turns to gold, except when he touches the podium on which that he delivers his legal messages, and then the judge says, "You, sir, have won this case. The case is closed," and he hits it with the gavel, and off we go. Anyway, enough of this. NewLawOffice.com, 888-692-8084. Stephen P. New is the man for you. Whatever your legal situation, or if you're a downtrodden wrestler that needs representation, more details coming soon.
Yeah, not just representation, but Stephen's a full-service shop. He could also do trademarks, copyrights, so many things, but we'll talk more about that in the future.
I'm trademarked and copyrighted thanks to Stephen P. New. Nobody can make another one of me.
Well, let's thank God for that, but let's get a few more questions here, Jim. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from LD Madera, Coconut Creek, Florida. Hope you're doing well, Jim. It was just announced that WWE has made a multi-year deal with the Walt Disney Company, where WWE programming will now be available in Disney Plus in Indonesia, and will include pay-per-views like Wrestlemania. Here's an official statement from Nick Khan. Partnering with Disney Plus Hotstar, the Disney streaming service in Indonesia, will allow us to deliver WWE Network content, including Wrestlemania, on a best-in-class platform to our existing fans in Indonesia, while also introducing WWE to a new audience in the region as Disney Plus continues to expand its reach internationally. What do you think, Jim? Do you think this is the first step in WWE finally being sold to Disney? What do you think this will mean for WWE in the near future?
Well, Brian, I think the bigger question is, where the fuck is Indonesia?
That's the question you have? Out of all the questions?
Where is Indonesia? Where can you find Indonesia? Do you go to Bolivia and turn left? Right turn at Albuquerque? Where the fuck is Indonesia?
Southeast Asia, I believe.
So it's south and east of Asia. Well, that clears that up.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, who knows and who cares who the fuck's in Indonesia, but more specifically to this statement, are they dipping a toe in? Is this a little preliminary trial run? I mean, they've had the network, they've got the cock, they've got, you know, they're good here in the United States. Canada, I think, still has the network. They don't have to put up with the cock. And the UK still has the network, but if Disney has these streaming services in everywhere, Mongolia, Pakistan, Eastern Belchville, wherever, and they can get on the streaming service and get paid a flat fee, they don't have to worry about the network. They don't have to worry about people subscribing. They don't have to worry about, I mean, we made fun of the Saudi Arabia announcers, you know, Fubar Makafakalub and Slapko Fudd. Well, where are they going to find somebody that speaks Indonesian and translate all that shit into Indonesias? So Disney's already there. Here's however many $1 million. We'll just show your shit. And if they're happy with them in Indonesia, then what's to prevent Disney Brazil and Disney Lithuania or whatever from saying, hey, we'll do that too? And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get Nick Khan's Hollywood. He's television. He's movies. He's trying to get content deals where they get paid for their programming that they produce, no matter whether their programming is any good or not. And considering the quality of their programming over the last few years, that's the most brilliant marketing strategy that they could adopt. Somebody pay me whether this shit's any good or not. So even if it's not a precursor of something that's already on the books or being talked about with them and Disney, it's another big player like that having some type of relationship with them so that they've got people to play off of each other when they start doing the rights fees and all the other thing again. But again, no wrestling fan in our known English-speaking world gives a fuck what goes on in Indonesia. But it's another way that they're selling wrestling now like movies and TV shows instead of like a fucking sport. And considering the way that their product looks, the sport's the last thing they can sell it as.
Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Wesley. Comcast just released financials for the Peacock streaming service, and it lost the corporation $1.7 billion
What?
in 2021.
Wait a minute, it's a money loser?
Comcast says that it plans on losing $2.5 billion next year as they ramp up content creation for the service. With yearly revenue at only $778 million, expansion has to be beyond aggressive to continue to justify such staggering development. Do you think a potential sale of WWE would hurt or help Comcast overall, considering the added expenditure? Remember, much of WWE's revenue comes from Comcast and would effectively be eliminated should a sale occur.
But wait, how do they lose $2 billion? They're taking programs that are either in their archives, in their library, or that are airing on their various networks, and they put them on this streaming service, so you have to pay to subscribe to the streaming service to watch the programs that they're already producing, and that in some cases have been in the can for years and are being repurposed anyway. How can they lose $2 billion on that?
I don't know. I'm going to look up to see if anyone has anything.
I know there's setting up the infrastructure of the thing and maybe digitizing the footage or editing or transfer or whatever, but $2 billion worth? And I don't like streaming television because it's not real TV and it goes out a lot, especially if you have Spectrum, folks. I remind you. Cable TV is still easier to work, but they ain't got a bad deal there. If you can figure out how to work it and you can suffer through, if you're watching wrestling, that they don't have the on-screen fast forward in some cases, whatever, you can see literally thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of movies and TV shows, everything that the WWE has put up that they've ever got on tape that they've got out yet, plus every other thing that they own for $5 a month. How can this not be something that would make some money? You're selling them the sleeves off your vest. Are they doing new programming for the Peacock? Or are they just showing the other stuff from other places?
I believe they are doing new programming too, but let me read a little bit of
Maybe they ought to quit doing that new programming. Maybe that's where that $2 billion went.
Well, let's see what this says. This is from The Hollywood Reporter by George Salai. Peacock, the streaming service of Comcast's entertainment unit, NBC Universal, reached 24.5 million monthly active accounts in the U.S. as of the end of 2021. Comcast disclosed in its fourth quarter earnings report on Thursday. The media, entertainment, and technology conglomerate had previously focused on Peacock signups, but on Thursday disclosed the active user metric instead. So I guess they were previously telling everyone how many people signed up, and now they're all of a sudden saying, well, here's how many people are there altogether.
Peacock. Look, what I just heard, wait a minute. So you're saying that they have 25 million people in the United States alone paying them $5 a month?
Well, not necessarily.
They can't make money?
What I'm saying is they have 24.5 million monthly active accounts, but a lot of them, I would figure, may be free accounts, right? Because if you are a Comcast subscriber, you get Peacock for free.
I think there's a loophole.
There are various people who have different deals for Peacock, yeah.
Well, I've heard that there's all kinds of different deals you can have to cock these things up.
Have you heard that? Indeed.
I've heard that, okay. Yes.
Well, what are your thoughts on Peacock potentially losing money, right as WWE has a deal to be on Disney Plus in Indonesia?
Well, I mean, it's not the WWE's fault that Peacock is losing money, but it does show that they're willing to drop the P and the cock right in the middle of the stream there and change horses right in midstream if they don't get their way. That's what the WWE said. They're playing both sides against each other, apparently. So I don't know. I much prefer that things go back to the way that they should be. And we had 3 or 4 television stations with an over-the-air broadcast signal, because then everything on would actually be good like it used to be. Now there's 400 channels and everything sucks. And if we had 4 over-the-air channels, then we could go back to pay-per-view television for the big events, and the WWE could make $80 or $90 million in one night, except nobody would buy their shows because they all suck now. So maybe it's better that they just sell them to the Peacock and and Disney.
But with that, the drive-thru is closed. Oh, hold on, I found this thing.
Oh.
Here we go. The drive-thru is closed. Oh, no. Oh, no.
You have a clunker on your kalimba.
Oh, someone messed with my kalimba. Wait, it's better now. All right. Well, of course, we'll be back this weekend with the Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And next week, right back here on Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget, patreon.com/Cornette to access the archive of the Drive Thru and Experience going back to the very beginning in 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. Subscribe to the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel for full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, all with the exclusive and very, very popular Travis Heckel artwork, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Don't forget Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com, or more importantly, the Cameo Massacre. What was it?
The St. Valentine's Day Massacameos.
Massacameos. That's what it was. And what do the listeners need to know about that?
Apparently the same thing you need to know. Next Sunday, February 6th at noon Eastern, they will go on sale until they're all sold.
Of course, the drive-thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience, and next week right back here on the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!